It begins with a sound, doesn't it? That familiar, piercing call of the alarm clock, slicing through the quiet fabric of the morning. Before our eyes have fully adjusted to the light, our hands have already found our phones, and the day's first wave washes over us. A relentless tide of notifications, emails, and the silent, heavy pressure of 1,000 expectations. We rise, and we begin to run, joining the endless race on a wheel that spins faster and faster, yet seems to go nowhere at all. We move through our days in a blur of meetings, deadlines, and obligations, our minds constantly planning, worrying, replaying. We are surrounded by noise, by people, by information. Yet a profound sense of loneliness can settle deep within our bones. In the quiet moments, perhaps late at night when the world has finally hushed, a gentle question may whisper from the depths of our being. A persistent, quiet ache that asks, is this all there is? This hurried chase from one task to the next, from one fleeting pleasure to another, this feeling, this deep exhaustion that sleep cannot fix, is not a personal failure. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is a shared experience of our time, a collective human ache, an unnamed thirst that no amount of success, possessions, or distraction can seem to quench. It is the soul's fatigue, a feeling of being lost in a world that offers countless destinations but no reliable map. But what if the map has existed all along? What if the answer isn't to run faster, but to stop running altogether? Millennia ago, a young prince named Siddhartha, surrounded by every luxury and pleasure imaginable, felt this very same profound dissatisfaction. His journey was not a quest to gain more, but a radical path to understand the very nature of our unease, a journey to let go. This path, he discovered, the wisdom of what we now call Buddhism, is not a set of rigid beliefs you must adopt, or a foreign deity you must worship. Think of it, instead, as a practical guide, a science of the mind, a clear and compassionate map for exploring your own inner world. It is a path that offers to lead us back to ourselves, to find the root of our restlessness, and to discover a wellspring of peace that exists not in some distant future or faraway land, but right here, right now, waiting patiently beneath the noise of our modern lives. To begin this journey together, we must first be very gentle and very honest with ourselves. We must be willing to pause the endless outward search, and for a few moments, simply turn our gaze inward. Let's start not with a complex philosophy, but with a feeling, a sensation that is as familiar to us as our own breath. It is that unspoken ache, that low hum of discontent that often lies just beneath the surface of our busy lives. It is the feeling that something is not quite right, a subtle tension in the heart, a quiet yearning for a peace that seems forever out of reach. In the ancient language of this path, this fundamental human experience is given a name, Dukkha. Now, the common translation of Dukkha is suffering, but this single word is too harsh, too heavy. It can feel like a judgment. It conjures images of only the most extreme pain and despair. So let us, for our journey, soften this word. Let us think of dukkha not as a verdict, but as a gentle diagnosis. It is the acknowledgement of that friction we feel The inherent unsatisfactoriness of a life lived in constant flux. It is the recognition that even in our happiest moments, there is a fragile, transient quality that we can't quite ignore. To truly understand this, let us travel back in time to a story of a young prince who lived in a palace meticulously designed to shield him from this very truth. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he lived within a gilded cage of immense beauty and pleasure. His father, the king, had decreed that the prince should never witness any sight that might trouble his mind or hint at the world's sorrows. The palace grounds were a paradise of lush gardens, sparkling fountains, and youthful, healthy attendants. Sickness, old age, and death were words he did not know, concepts that were carefully hidden from his view. He had everything a person could desire: wealth, luxury, a loving family. Yet, even in this perfect world, the unspoken ache began to stir within him. A deep, persistent curiosity about the world beyond the palace walls grew stronger each day. Finally, he persuaded his charioteer, Channa, to take him out into the city. And on this first journey, the carefully constructed walls of his perfect world began to crumble. He saw a man, his body bent and frail, his skin wrinkled like dry parchment, leaning heavily on a staff. His back was stooped, his movements slow and pained. The prince, who had only ever seen vibrant, youthful bodies, turned to his charioteer and asked, "Channa, what is wrong with that man?" And Channa replied with a heavy heart, "That is an old man, my prince. That is what happens to all of us if we live long enough. We all grow old." This was the first sight, the first crack in the illusion. A profound shock settled in Siddhartha's heart. The realization that the vitality he took for granted was a temporary gift. On a second trip, he saw another sight that pierced him even more deeply. He saw a person lying on the side of the road, their body shaking with fever, their skin covered in sores, their breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. He saw the unmistakable pain in their eyes. "And this? Channa, what is this?" the prince asked, his voice trembling. "That, my prince, is sickness. It is a state that can befall any of us. At any time, without warning. Our bodies are fragile, and they can fail us." The prince felt a cold dread. The fortress of his own physical health, which he had thought was invincible, was revealed to be a fragile vessel, susceptible to decay and disease at any moment. The unspoken ache was growing louder. On his third journey, he encountered the most shocking sight of all. He saw a group of people weeping, carrying a still, motionless body wrapped in cloth upon a stretcher. The body was pale and utterly unresponsive. "What is this?" he whispered, his heart pounding. Channa's voice was soft and full of sorrow. "This is death, my prince. This is the end that awaits every single living being. The one who is born must one day die. There is no escape." In that moment, the entire foundation of Siddhartha's world collapsed. The joy of the palace, the music, the laughter, all of it now seemed like a hollow echo, a desperate attempt to ignore this terrifying, inescapable truth. Old age, sickness, and death. This was the true inheritance of every human being. This is the most obvious, the most undeniable layer of dukkha. It is the pain of a broken bone, the grief of losing a parent, the terror of a serious diagnosis. It is the raw, physical and emotional pain that life inevitably brings to our door. It is the suffering of encountering what we do not want, a reality that we fight against with all our might. But dukkha is far more subtle than just these overt forms of pain. As the prince would later understand, there is a second layer, the dukkha of change. Think of the happiest moment in your life, a moment of pure joy, perhaps a wedding day, the birth of a child, a great personal success. Even within that peak experience, if we are truly honest, isn't there a tiny, subtle shadow, a whisper that says, "This will not last"? The joy of the wedding day fades into the routine of daily life. The beautiful vacation must come to an end. The promotion's excitement wears off, replaced by new responsibilities and pressures. This is the suffering born from impermanence, because we cling to pleasant experiences, wanting them to be permanent. Their inevitable passing becomes a source of pain. It is the quiet sorrow of watching our children grow up, a beautiful process tinged with the loss of their childhood. It is the sadness of finishing a wonderful book or a beautiful song. We try to grasp happiness like trying to hold water in our fists. The tighter we squeeze, the faster it slips away. This is the dukkha Siddhartha felt when he looked back at his palace, realizing its pleasures were fleeting and unreal. And then there is the third, most subtle, and most pervasive layer of dukkha. This is the background radiation of our existence. It is the baseline anxiety, the feeling of being fundamentally unsettled. It is the boredom that makes us compulsively reach for our phone. It is the vague irritation that simmers just below the surface on a perfectly ordinary day. This is the dukkha of conditioned existence itself. It arises simply because we are a self, a bundle of constantly changing physical and mental components that we identify as me and mine. This self is always insecure. It needs to be defended, promoted, and pleased. It lives in a state of constant, low-grade tension, comparing itself to others, worrying about the future, regretting the past. It is the friction of being alive. It is the unspoken ache. It is the reason why even a life free of major tragedy can still feel deeply unfulfilling. This is the profound unease that drove the prince from his palace, the sense that the entire structure of his existence, however pleasant, was built on an unstable and ultimately unsatisfactory foundation. On his fourth and final trip, Siddhartha saw one last sight. Amidst the chaos and sorrow of the world, he saw a man walking with serene purpose. The man was a wandering ascetic, with a shaved head and a simple robe. He had no possessions, yet his face was not filled with despair, but with a profound and radiant calm. He seemed to be in the world, but not trapped by it. In that moment, Siddhartha saw that while old age, sickness, and death were inevitable truths, the suffering, the dukkha, that came with them was not. He saw that another way was possible. He saw a path, acknowledging dukkha. This three-layered truth of our lives is not an act of pessimism. It is an act of supreme courage and realism. It is the first, essential step toward healing. It is the moment a doctor correctly identifies the illness. It shatters our isolation, because this truth connects us all. The wealthiest king and the poorest beggar, the most celebrated artist and the most ordinary person. We all share this common ground. The person who cuts you off in traffic, the boss who seems unreasonable, the family member you struggle to understand. They too are navigating their own dukkha, their own unspoken ache. Seeing this does not solve everything, but it softens the heart. It replaces judgment with a seed of compassion. By daring to look at the truth of our shared condition without flinching, we have taken the first, most difficult step on the path to true freedom. We have named the ache. The next question, the question that burned in Siddhartha's heart and now burns in ours, is this: if this is the condition, what is its cause? Where does this river of dissatisfaction truly begin? We have stood together on the firm ground of truth, acknowledging the universal reality of dukkha, that unspoken ache that runs through our lives. We have looked it in the eye without fear, and in doing so, we have prepared ourselves for the next crucial step, to ask the question that the Prince Siddhartha asked himself after his profound realization: where does this come from? If our inner world so often feels unsettled, what is the engine that drives this restlessness? The answer the Buddha discovered is at once shockingly simple and profoundly deep. The root of all our suffering, of all dukkha, is a single, powerful force. It is called tanha, a word that translates as thirst, craving, or desire. This is not a moral judgment. Tanha is not a sin to be condemned. It is a fundamental mechanism of the untrained mind, an impersonal energy that pulls and pushes us ceaselessly. It is the constant, deep-seated yearning for things to be different than they are. It is the engine of the spinning wheel. To truly understand its power, we must look at the three distinct forms this great thirst takes, for it flows into every corner of our lives. The first and most obvious form is the thirst for sense pleasures. This is kama tanha. This is the endless craving that comes through our six senses, the desire for beautiful sights, pleasant sounds, delicious tastes, enticing smells, comfortable physical sensations, and interesting ideas or thoughts. In our modern world, this thirst has been amplified into a deafening roar. It is the automatic reflex to unlock our phone and scroll, seeking that next visual hit, that next jolt of novelty, that next piece of validation in the form of a like or a comment. It is the craving for the taste of a specific food, a craving so strong it can occupy our entire mind until it is satisfied. It is the desire to fill every moment of silence with a podcast, with music, with some form of auditory input, because we are uncomfortable with the sound of our own quiet mind. It is the relentless pursuit of comfort, of the perfect temperature, the perfect chair, the perfect vacation. This thirst promises us happiness. It tells us, if you just get this one thing, then you will be content. So we chase, we get the new gadget, and for a day or a week, it brings a thrill. But soon, the shine wears off, the novelty fades, and the thirst returns. Now searching for a new object, we binge watch a series, consuming it voraciously, only to feel a sense of emptiness and a new craving for another story when it ends. The Buddha compared this to drinking salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. It is a cycle of brief stimulation followed by a deeper sense of lack, a game that can never be won, because the satisfaction it provides is, by its very nature, impermanent. The second form of thirst is more subtle, and perhaps even more powerful. It is bhavatanha, the thirst for existence, for becoming. This is not just about wanting things. It is about wanting to be something. It is the deep, powerful drive of the ego. It is the craving to carve out a solid, permanent, and impressive identity for ourselves in a world that is constantly changing. This thirst fuels our ambition, our desperate need for status, recognition, and validation. It is the voice that whispers, "If I could just get that promotion, then I would be a success." It is the anxiety that drives us to construct the perfect image of our lives on social media, curating a highlight reel to prove to the world and to ourselves that we are happy, that we are important, that we exist in a meaningful way. This is the thirst to become a good meditator, to become enlightened, to become a better person. It creates an endless project. Out of the self, we are constantly under construction, and therefore, we are never whole, never complete. This thirst is the source of immense anxiety, because an identity built on external validation is a fortress built on sand. It gives rise to envy when we see others who seem to be more something than we are, more successful, more attractive, more intelligent. It gives rise to fear, the deep fear of failure, the fear of being seen as ordinary, the fear of being nobody. It is the craving to leave a mark, to build a legacy, to somehow achieve permanence in an impermanent world. It is the thirst to be a solid noun in a world that is made only of verbs. The third form of thirst is the shadow of the second. It might seem like the opposite, but it comes from the very same root. This is vibhavatanya, the thirst for non-existence, for annihilation. If the thirst for becoming is the energy of pulling things toward us, this is the energy of violently pushing them away. It is the desperate craving for an unpleasant feeling, a painful memory, or a difficult situation to simply cease. It is the anger that wishes to destroy the source of its frustration. It is the immediate urge we feel to numb ourselves when confronted with grief, sadness, or boredom. We reach for distraction, for alcohol, for any experience that will help us annihilate the present moment's discomfort. In its most extreme form, this thirst can manifest as self-harm or suicidal thoughts, a craving to annihilate the self that is perceived as the source of unbearable pain. But it also operates on a much subtler, daily level. It is the desire for the weekend on a Monday morning. It is the irritation with our own perceived flaws, a desire to get rid of the parts of ourselves we don't like. It is aversion, hatred, and denial. It is the other side of the coin of craving. One side grasps and pulls, the other side rejects and pushes. Both are a violent reaction against the reality of the present moment. Both are a form of thirst, a demand that reality conform to our wishes. This relentless thirsting, in all its forms, eventually solidifies into something even more stubborn. It becomes upadana, which means clinging or attachment. A thirst is a leaning towards something, a reaching for it. Clinging is when we have grabbed onto it, identified with it, and made our happiness conditional upon it. Our thirst for a pleasant feeling becomes a clinging to pleasure. Our thirst for an identity becomes a clinging to our reputation and our self-image. Our aversion to pain becomes a clinging to our comfort zone. And it is this clinging that binds us to the wheel of suffering. To illustrate this endless, painful cycle, Buddhist cosmology offers a powerful and tragic image, the realm of the hungry ghosts, or pretas. These are beings depicted with enormous, swollen, and painfully empty stomachs, representing their limitless, insatiable désir. Yet, they have mouths as small as the eye of a needle, and necks as thin as a strand of hair. No matter how much they try to consume, they can never take in enough to ease their torment. They are surrounded by food and water that turns to fire or dust the moment they try to consume it. This is a perfect metaphor for a life ruled by tanha. The swollen belly is our endless craving. The tiny throat is our inability to ever find lasting satisfaction. We live in a world of potential pleasures, yet our very craving makes it impossible to enjoy them fully, as we are always anxious about them ending, or already looking for the next fix. We are perpetually hungry, perpetually thirsty, tormented by a desire that can never, ever be fulfilled. This is the engine. This is the root. This is the cause of the unspoken ache. We feel a lack, a dukkha, a thirst. Atanya arises to fill that lack. We act on the thirst, and this action creates a ripple, a karma. We might get a momentary pleasure, or we might get frustration, but either way, the underlying thirst is not quenched. It is merely reinforced, and the cycle begins again. We are caught in a loop, running in place, driven by a thirst that creates its own dissatisfaction. But to see this mechanism clearly, without judgment, is not a cause for despair. It is the cause for a profound and revolutionary hope, because if we have found the cause, if we have found the very root of the fire, then the next question becomes the most important one we could ever ask. Can this fire be put out? Can this thirst be quenched? Is there a shore on the other side of this turbulent river? After wading through the difficult truths of our shared human condition, after staring into the relentless current of our own thirst, it is natural to feel a sense of weight, perhaps even a quiet despair. We have diagnosed the ailment, dukkha, and we have identified its root cause, danya. It can feel as though we are describing a prison from which there is no escape. We have spoken of a spinning wheel, a hungry ghost, a river of dissatisfaction, but it is precisely here, at the point of our deepest honesty, that the path of the Buddha offers not a confirmation of our despair, but a radical, luminous, and deeply liberating hope. This hope is contained in the third noble truth, the truth of Nirodha. Nirodha is a gentle word, a reassuring word. It simply means cessation. It is the profound and achievable possibility that the thirst can be quenched, the fire can go out, and the suffering can end. This is the good news, the light that illuminates the entire path. It is the declaration that our prison has a key, the spinning wheel has an off switch, and the turbulent river has a peaceful shore. This shore, this state of ultimate peace and freedom, is known by the name nirvana. Now, this word, nirvana, is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of spirituality. It has been draped in layers of fantasy and misconception. Some imagine it as a kind of heavenly paradise, a beautiful garden in the clouds where we go after we die. Others imagine it as a terrifying void, a complete annihilation of the self, a blank nothingness. Both of these ideas miss the mark entirely. The Buddha was not a real estate agent for the afterlife, nor was he a proponent of self-destruction. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is a state you realize. It is not an extinction of the self, but an extinction of the delusions that surround the self. It is waking up from a long and troubled dream. When you wake up, you have not been annihilated. You have simply, finally, become awake to what is real. The most direct and powerful way to understand nirvana is through the Buddha's own metaphor, the metaphor of a fire. Imagine your mind is a fire. The three great thirsts that we spoke of are the fuel for this fire. The thirst for sense pleasure, bhavatarnya, is like constantly throwing dry kindling onto the flames. A desperate search for more stimulation, more pleasure, more excitement to keep the fire blazing. The thirst for existence, bhavatarnya, is the deep, hot coal bed of the ego, the burning desire to be bigger, better, more permanent. The thirst for non-existence, vibhavatarnya, is the fire of aversion and hatred, a destructive blaze that seeks to burn away and annihilate everything that is unpleasant. For most of our lives, we are not trying to put this fire out. We are actively feeding it. We believe that if we just find the right fuel, the perfect log, the fire will become so magnificent that it will finally bring us lasting warmth and happiness. So we run frantically, gathering more wood, more experiences, more possessions, more status, more distractions, throwing them all into the blaze, and all we get is more heat, more smoke, more agitation, and a fire that burns ever more uncontrollably, consuming our peace and our energy. Nirodha, the great cessation, is the discovery that we can simply stop feeding the fire. It is not a violent act of putting it out with water. It does not require a great struggle. It is a simple, radical act of letting go. It is the wisdom of realizing that the fire itself, fueled by thirst, is the problem. So we stop. We stop adding the fuel of craving. We stop adding the fuel of aversion. We stop adding the fuel of our illusions. And what happens to a fire when it is no longer fed? It does not fly away to some other realm. It does not disappear into a void. It simply ceases. The flames flicker and die down. The intense heat softens into a gentle warmth. The thick, blinding smoke of confusion clears. And what is left is not a black and empty nothingness. What is left is a profound stillness, a luminous clarity, a deep, unshakable peace. This coolness, this tranquility, this is the feeling tone of nirvana. So what is this state actually like? Since it is defined by the absence of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, it can be hard to describe in positive terms, but we can speak of the qualities that shine forth when the smoke clears. The first quality is an unshakable peace. This is not the temporary peace of a quiet afternoon or a relaxing vacation. That peace is conditional. It depends on external circumstances being just right. The peace of nirvana is unconditional. It is a deep stillness at the very core of your being, a silence that is not disturbed by the noise of the world. It is the calm of the deep ocean that remains unmoved by the chaotic waves on the surface. You can be in the midst of traffic, of conflict, of life's inevitable challenges, and yet this inner sanctuary of peace remains untouched. The second quality is a profound freedom. Think of how much of our mental energy is consumed by the push and pull of desire, the wanting this, the rejecting that, the constant worrying, planning, hoping, and fearing. We are slaves to our own reactive habits, puppets pulled by the strings of our likes and dislikes. Nirvana is the cutting of these strings. It is freedom from the tyranny of your own mind. It is not that you no longer have preferences, but that you are no longer enslaved by them. You are free to respond to life with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting blindly from a place of craving or aversion. It is the freedom of the bird uncaged, finally able to soar in the open sky of the present moment. The third quality is a radiant clarity. When the smoke of delusion has cleared, you see things, for the first time, exactly as they are. You see the impermanent nature of all things without sadness. You see the interconnectedness of all life without sentimentality. You see the workings of your own mind without judgment. Your mind becomes like a calm, pristine mountain lake, so still and clear that it perfectly reflects the sky, the trees, and the moon, without a single distortion. This is the wisdom that arises naturally when the agitation of thirst has ceased. It is vital to know that this ultimate freedom is attainable in this very life. The Buddha himself was a living example of this. After he awakened under the Bodhi tree, he did not vanish. He lived for another 45 years. He walked. He taught. He ate. He sometimes got sick. He was experiencing what is called nirvana with a remainder, meaning he was utterly free from all mental suffering, all greed, hatred, and delusion. But he still had the remainder of his physical body, which was still subject to physical pain and decay. The inner fire was out. Even if the vessel of the body remained, the final passing of an awakened one, when the body dies, is called parinirvana, the final extinguishing without any remainder. But the true prize, the liberation from all mental anguish, is a possibility for us right here. In this lifetime, the promise is real. A shore of peace exists. We are not doomed to be tossed about forever on the waves of our own craving. A path has been walked, and it can be walked again. And so, the hopeful heart, having seen that a destination of such profound peace is possible, naturally asks the most practical question of all: how do I get there? What are the steps? What is the map that leads from the burning fire of suffering to the cool, peaceful shore of nirvana? We stand now on a shore of incredible promise. We have looked into the heart of our dis-ease. We have traced its origin to the insatiable fire of thirst. And we have heard the liberating news that this fire can, in fact, go out. A state of profound peace, freedom, and clarity called nirvana is not a distant dream, but an attainable reality. And so, the heart, filled with this new hope, asks the most vital and practical question: how? How do we walk from the burning plains of our ordinary, agitated existence to the cool, clear shore of peace? The answer is not a secret mantra, a single act of faith, or a complex ritual. The answer is a path, a gradual, practical, and deeply compassionate path of training and transformation. This is the fourth noble truth, the path of Magga, more famously known as the Noble Eightfold Path. It is the blueprint for the journey home. Before we walk this path, we must first understand its spirit. This is the spirit of the middle way. To understand this, we must look at the Buddha's own life. He had experienced both of life's extremes in their most intense forms. As a prince, he lived a life of ultimate sensual indulgence. He was surrounded by every imaginable pleasure, every comfort, every beauty. His every whim was catered to, yet he found this life to be hollow, suffocating, and ultimately unable to touch his deep inner ache. So he left it all behind, and for 6 years, he threw himself into the opposite extreme. He became a wandering ascetic, practicing the most severe forms of self-mortification. He fasted until his ribs protruded like the slats of a broken shed. He held his breath until he felt sharp pains in his head. He slept on beds of thorns and exposed his body to the harshest elements. He believed that by punishing and conquering the body, he could liberate the spirit. But this path, too, failed him. It brought him to the brink of death. But it did not bring him wisdom or peace. It only brought exhaustion and despair. It was in this moment of utter failure, having seen the futility of both indulgence and denial, that he discovered the middle way. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this discovery perfectly. During his time as an ascetic, he overheard a musician on a boat teaching his student how to tune a lute or a veena. The master said, "If you tighten the string too much, it will snap, but if you leave the string too loose, it will not make a sound." In that moment, Siddhartha had a profound insight. The path to awakening was just like tuning this instrument. His life in the palace was the loose string, lax and incapable of producing the beautiful music of wisdom. His life as an ascetic was the string pulled too tight, strained and on the verge of snapping, producing only the harsh sound of pain. The middle way is the art of finding the perfect tension. It is a path of balance, of gentle and persistent effort, not of violent struggle or lazy indifference. The Noble Eightfold Path is the embodiment of this wise, compassionate, and effective middle way. Now, when we hear the number 8, we might imagine a ladder with 8 rungs, a sequence of steps we must climb one by one. This is not the right way to see it. The path is not linear. It is a holistic and interconnected system, where each part supports and deepens all the other parts. Imagine weaving a strong rope. A single strand of fiber is weak and can be easily broken, but when you weave 8 strands together, they create a rope of incredible strength, a rope that can pull you from the depths of confusion to the shore of freedom. The 8 factors of the path are woven together in this way, and they are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings. These are ethical conduct, or sila, mental discipline, or samadhi, and wisdom, or panya. Let's begin with the foundation, ethical conduct, or sila. This is the ground upon which the entire spiritual life is built. It consists of 3 path factors: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is not about following a set of external rules to be a good person or to earn points for heaven. Its purpose is entirely practical. It is about creating a life of harmlessness. It is about calming the external world so that we can begin the deep, quiet work of calming the internal world. If our daily life is full of conflict, dishonesty, and harm, our mind will be too agitated and filled with guilt to ever settle into a state of peace. So, right speech means learning to speak truthfully, kindly, and helpfully. It means abandoning lying, divisive speech that sets people against each other, harsh words spoken in anger, and idle gossip that wastes our time and pollutes our minds. Right action is similar. It is the commitment to act in ways that do not cause harm to ourselves or others. It is to refrain from killing or harming living beings, from taking what is not freely given, and from engaging in sexual conduct that is exploitative or harmful. And right livelihood means earning a living in a profession that does not harm others. It means avoiding work that involves deception, or trading in weapons, poison, intoxicants, or living beings. Sila is about creating a beautiful, peaceful, and self-respecting container for our practice. With this stable foundation, we can begin the second training, mental discipline, or samadhi. This is the heart of the meditative practice, the actual training of the mind. It consists of three factors: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Right effort is not about gritting your teeth and forcing your mind to behave. It is that wise and gentle persistence of the musician tuning the lute. It is the balanced effort to prevent unwholesome, negative states of mind from arising, to let go of them if they have arisen, and to actively cultivate wholesome, positive states of mind, like kindness and compassion, and to maintain them. Right mindfulness is the cornerstone of the entire path. It is the capacity to pay attention to the present moment, clearly and without judgment. It is the skill of watching our breath, our body sensations, our feelings, and our thoughts as they arise and pass away, without getting lost in them. It is the master key that unlocks the door to our inner world, and we will explore it in great depth. Finally, right concentration is the fruit of this practice. As we apply gentle effort and consistent mindfulness, the mind, which is normally scattered and fragmented, begins to gather, to unify. It develops the ability to rest, steady and unwavering, upon a single object of meditation. It is in this state of deep, collected calm that true wisdom can arise. And this leads us to the final training, the pinnacle of the path, wisdom, or paññā. This is the insight that truly liberates us. It consists of the final two factors, right intention and right view. Right intention, sometimes called right thought, is about the why behind our actions. It is about purifying our motivations. It means consciously cultivating the intention to let go of clinging, the intention of loving kindness, which wishes well for all beings, and the intention of compassion, which wishes for all beings to be free from suffering. These intentions guide our mind away from the selfish fires of greed and hatred. And finally, we have right view, or right understanding. This is the North Star for the entire journey. It is the clear seeing of reality as it is. It begins with an intellectual understanding of the Four Noble Truths: that there is suffering, that it has a cause, that it can cease, and that this eightfold path is the way to that cessation. As we practice, this intellectual understanding deepens into a direct, experiential wisdom, a profound insight into the nature of impermanence, dissatisfaction, and not self. It is right view that keeps us oriented, and it is the direct seeing of right view that is the final liberation itself. This, then, is the map, a comprehensive guide for living a human life that leads not to more confusion and pain, but to clarity, peace, and freedom. It is not about adding anything new to ourselves, but about skillfully letting go of what obscures our true nature. But faced with such a rich and complete map, a question naturally arises. Where do we begin? Where do we place our foot to take the very first step on this path? The Buddha, in his profound wisdom, gave a clear answer. The entire structure, the whole beautiful path of ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom is supported and made possible by the practice of one factor in particular, right mindfulness. The journey begins not by memorizing these steps, but by learning to inhabit our own bodies, our own minds, our own lives, one moment at a time. It begins with the most simple, humble, and profound act available to us, the act of paying attention to the feeling of our own breath. We now have the map, the great and noble Eightfold Path, with its integrated vision for a life of wisdom, ethics, and mental training. It can seem vast, even overwhelming, like being handed the blueprint for a grand cathedral. But the wisest architect knows that even the most magnificent structure is built one stone at a time. The entire journey, the whole beautiful path, rests upon one foundational practice, one core skill that we must cultivate with gentleness and patience. This is the practice of right mindfulness, and its most fundamental expression is called anapanasati, which simply means mindfulness of breathing. This is our first stone. This is our starting point. And the wonderful news is that it requires nothing you do not already have. It is free. It is portable. And it is available to you in every single moment of your life. The breath is our most faithful companion, the quiet rhythm that underlies our entire existence. From our first cry to our final release, it is the bridge between our inner and outer worlds, a tool of profound power disguised in utter simplicity. Before we learn the simple technique, let's appreciate for a moment the genius of using the breath as our focus. Why the breath? Firstly, it is always here. You don't have to remember to bring it with you. Unlike a thought or a memory, it is happening right now, in this present moment, which is the only place life ever truly unfolds. Secondly, the breath is neutral. While thoughts and emotions are often charged with judgment, stories, and strong feelings, the physical sensation of air moving in and out of your body is just a raw, physical sensation. It gives the mind a calm, non-controversial place to rest. And thirdly, the breath is the meeting point of the conscious and the unconscious. You can choose to hold your breath or breathe deeply, but if you stop paying attention, it continues on its own. It is a direct link to the deeper, autonomic processes of your body. It is a mirror of your mind. When you are anxious or angry, your breath is short and shallow. When you are calm and relaxed, your breath is slow and deep. The profound implication is that this street goes both ways. By gently bringing our awareness to the breath and allowing it to calm down, we can directly influence the state of our mind. This is not about forcing anything. It is about creating the conditions for our own nervous system to find its natural state of balance. So, how do we begin? The instructions are a beautiful expression of the middle way. Simple, but not easy. Gentle, but not lax. First, find a posture that embodies both alertness and relaxation. You can sit on a cushion, on the floor, Or you can sit upright in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. There is no need to force your body into a painful or unnatural position. The goal is comfort. Let your back be straight, but not stiff, like a stack of coins, dignified and erect. Let your hands rest easily in your lap or on your knees. Let your eyes gently close, or if you prefer, you can leave them slightly open. With a soft, unfocused gaze toward the floor, a few feet in front of you, take a moment to settle in. Feel the weight of your body on the chair or cushion. Now, gently bring your attention to the feeling of the breath moving in and out of your body. Your only task is to feel it, not to think about it, not to judge it, not to analyze it, but to simply feel the physical sensations. You might notice the cool air entering your nostrils. You might notice the slight rise and fall of your chest, or you might feel it most prominently in the gentle expansion and contraction of your abdomen. There is no right or wrong place to feel it. Simply choose one of these spots, whichever is most vivid for you, and let that be the home base for your attention. Rest your awareness there, as if it were a feather resting on a leaf. Let your breath be completely natural. You do not need to control it, deepen it, or change it in any way. If it is short, let it be short. If it is deep, let it be deep. Your job is not to be the manager of the breath, but to be the curious, friendly observer of the breath. To aid the mind, you can use a silent, soft, mental note. As you breathe in, you can simply know, in. As you breathe out, you can simply know, out, in, out. Just resting with this simple, reliable rhythm. And now we come to the most important instruction of all. Very soon, perhaps after only 1 or 2 breaths, your mind will wander away. It will be carried off by a thought, plus à plan, a memory, a worry, a sound from outside. This is not a mistake. This is not a failure. This is simply what minds do. This is the nature of the untrained mind. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is the golden moment of the practice. That moment of waking up, of realizing, oh, I was lost in thought. That is the moment of mindfulness. In that moment, there is no need for scolding or frustration. Do not judge yourself for thinking. Simply, gently, and with great kindness, acknowledge where your mind went thinking, and then softly, patiently, guide your attention back to the physical sensation of the breath. You may have to do this 5 times, or 50 times, or 500 times in a single sitting. It does not matter. The practice is not about staying on the breath. The practice is the gentle, compassionate act of returning over and over again. Every single time you return, you are strengthening the muscle of your attention. You are changing your brain. You are transforming a deep habit of distraction into a deep habit of awareness. This is why the breath is often called an anchor. Your mind is like a small boat on a vast and sometimes turbulent ocean. The waves are the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that are constantly arising. We are not trying to stop the ocean from having waves. That would be impossible. Instead, we drop an anchor. The breath is our anchor. The waves of thought will still come and toss the boat about, but the anchor keeps the boat from being completely swept away into the middle of the ocean, lost and adrift. Every time we notice we have been swept away and we return to the breath, we are checking the anchor, strengthening its hold, reminding ourselves that there is a place of stability we can always return to. Another beautiful image is that of a gatekeeper. Your mind is like the main gate of a bustling ancient city. Your consciousness is the gatekeeper. The sensations of the breath at the nostrils are the gateway itself. All day long, travelers pass through the gate. These are your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, your sounds, your urges. The job of a wise gatekeeper is not to chase after every traveler and demand to know their story, nor is it to try and block the gate and prevent anyone from coming or going. The job of the gatekeeper is simply to remain at their post, at the gate, and to be aware of who comes and goes. When a thought passes by, you simply note it, a thought, and remain at your post. When a feeling of sadness arises, you note it, sadness, and remain at your post. Your post is always the breath. This practice develops a calm, steady, non-reactive presence in the midst of the constant flow of your own life. It creates a tiny space between a stimulus and your habitual reaction, and within that precious space lies your freedom, your power to choose a wiser response. As we sit like this, anchoring ourselves in the present moment, patiently returning again and again to the simple reality of breathing, something remarkable begins to happen. As we watch the travelers passing through the gate of our awareness, a pattern emerges. We start to see, not as a theory but as a direct experience, that everything is in motion. A thought of a past memory arises, and then, without our doing anything, it vanishes. A feeling of boredom appears. It stays for a while, and then it too dissolves. A sound is heard, and then there is silence. Nothing stays. The gate is never empty, but the travelers are always changing. By grounding ourselves in the one constant rhythm of the breath, we begin to perceive the profound, ceaseless, and universal truth of the flow. We are getting our first direct taste of the unstable river of reality, the truth of impermanence. Having learned to sit with the breath, we have found our anchor. We have established a small island of stability in the midst of the restless ocean of the mind. From this island, we begin to observe. We watch the endless procession of thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they come and go through the gateway of our awareness. And as we watch, patiently and without judgment, a fundamental pattern begins to reveal itself. We see it not as a philosophy we must believe, but as a direct, undeniable experience. Nothing stays. Everything that arises passes away. This is the first great seal of existence, the universal law of anicca, pronounced anicca. This ancient Pali word means impermanence, inconstancy, change. It is the radical truth that we are living not in a world of solid, separat num, but in a universe of flowing, interconnected verbs. Everything is a process, a current, an unstable river. Look first to the world around you. We instinctively seek solidity and permanence, but nature offers none. The towering mountain that seems like a symbol of eternal strength is being worn down, grain by grain, by the wind and the rain. The mighty river carving its path through a canyon is never the same river twice. The great stars that light our night sky are themselves caught in a cosmic dance of birth, life, and death. burning for eons before they too collapse and fade. On a human scale, this truth is even more apparent. The seasons turn in their endless cycle. The vibrant flower that opens in the morning sun will wilt and decay. The hot cup of tea you hold in your hands is, at every moment, releasing its heat into the surrounding air, slowly becoming cool. We live our lives surrounded by irrefutable evidence of anicca, yet our minds are conditioned to ignore it, to grasp for an imaginary stability in a world defined by flow. Now, let us turn this lens of impermanence inward, upon the very thing we feel is most solid and real, our own body. We think of our body as a thing, a static object that we own and inhabit, but it is not a thing. It is a process. It is a river of constant change. Scientists tell us that in a matter of years, nearly every cell in our body will have died and been replaced. The body you have today is not the same physical entity it was a decade ago, or even a year ago. We are a continuous unfolding of birth, growth, decay, and death on a cellular level. We see it over our lifespan. The helpless infant becomes a curious child, who transforms into a restless adolescent, who matures into an adult, who will one day become a frail elder. We fight this process with all our might. We spend fortunes trying to halt the signs of aging, to preserve the vitality of youth, to deny the inevitable trajectory of this physical form. But anicca is a law that cannot be broken. Our body is not a fixed possession. It is a temporary vessel we have borrowed, and it is in a constant state of flux. To see this clearly is to begin to loosen our desperate grip upon it. There is a story from the time of the Buddha that illustrates this truth with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gotami had an infant son whom she adored more than life itself. One day, the child fell ill and died, consumed by an unbearable grief and lost in a state of deep denial. She refused to believe her son was gone. She clutched his small, cold body to her chest and went from person to person, from house to house, desperately searching for a medicine that could bring him back. Some people mocked her, others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man saw her profound suffering and directed her to the one person who might have an answer, the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her son at his feet, and begged him for the medicine that would cure her child. The Buddha looked at her with immense compassion and said, "There is only one thing I need to make such a medicine. Go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever died." Filled with a surge of hope, Kisa Gotami began her quest. She went to the first house and asked, "The Blessed One has sent me to fetch a mustard seed to make a medicine for my son. Can you give me one?" The woman of the house replied, "Of course," and went to get it. As she returned, Kisa Gotami remembered the Buddha's condition. "But has anyone in this house ever known death?" she asked. The woman's face fell. "Oh, you remind me of my deepest sorrow," she said. "My husband died just last year." With a heavy heart, Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family was happy to give her a mustard seed, but every single family had been touched by loss. One had lost a parent, another a sibling, another a child. As the sun began to set, the profound truth of the Buddha's lesson dawned on her. She was not alone in her pain. Loss was not a unique curse that had singled her out. It was the shared, universal inheritance of all beings. Her personal, sharp-edged grief began to soften and dissolve into a vast, compassionate understanding of the human condition. She took her son to the charnel ground, let go of his body, and returned to the Buddha, not for medicine, but for wisdom. She had directly seen the truth of anicca. This law of change is most immediate and most turbulent in the realm of our own mind. As you sit in meditation, you see it directly. A thought arises, seemingly from nowhere. It might be a plan for dinner, a worry about work, a line from a song. It demands your attention, feels incredibly solid and important for a moment. And then, just as mysteriously as it appeared, it vanishes, replaced by the next thought, and the next. Our minds are a waterfall of thoughts, a ceaseless stream. Where do they come from? Where do they go? We cannot say. They are as ephemeral as mist. Our feelings are the same. A wave of happiness may wash over us, and we cling to it, wanting it to stay forever. But it inevitably recedes. A wave of sadness or anger may arise, and we resist it, pushing it away. Yet it too will eventually pass if we allow it to. We make the fundamental mistake of trying to build our permanent home on these passing clouds. We identify with them. I am happy. I am angry. I am a person who thinks this way. But these are just temporary weather patterns passing through the vast sky of our awareness. Seeing this directly is profoundly liberating. We don't have to believe every thought or be a victim of every mood. We can learn to watch them arise and pass, like watching clouds drift across the sky. To truly embrace anicca is not to become a pessimist. It is the exact opposite. It is to finally begin to live in reality. It is what makes every moment precious. The beauty of a sunset is so poignant, precisely because you know it will not last. The joy of being with a loved one is so deep because you know that time is finite. Impermanence is what gives life its texture, its value, its sacredness. When you understand anicca, you learn to hold life with an open hand, not a clenched fist. You can love more deeply because you are not demanding permanence from a person or an experience. You can grieve more cleanly because you understand that loss is part of the natural flow. You learn to surf the waves of change rather than trying to stand against the tide. You begin to find a deep ease, a trust in the process. And as you become more and more intimate with this universal flow, a profound question begins to form in the quiet of your mind. If my body is always changing, if my feelings are always changing, if my thoughts are a ceaseless and uncontrollable stream, then where, in all of this flux, is the permanent, unchanging I? Who is this self that I have spent my whole life defending and promoting? If everything is an unstable river, who exactly is it that is doing the watching? We have been sitting on the bank of the unstable river of existence, watching the ceaseless flow of life. We have seen that our bodies, our world, and even the contents of our minds are in a state of constant, irreversible change, a state of anicca. This clear seeing, this direct insight, naturally gives rise to the most profound and personal question a human being can ask. Who am I? If everything I associate with myself, my body, my feelings, my thoughts is a temporary and ever-changing process, then where is the stable, continuous I at the center of it all? Who is the watcher on the riverbank? The journey into this question leads us to the second great seal of existence, the truth of anatta, pronounced anatta. This is often translated as no self, a phrase that can sound terrifying, like a declaration of our own non-existence. But this is a misunderstanding. Anatta is not a nihilistic denial of your existence. It is a liberating insight that you do not exist in the fixed, separate, solid way that you have been taught to believe. It is the discovery that the self you have spent your entire life constructing, defending, and worrying about is, in fact, an illusion, a ghost in the machine. And seeing through this illusion is the key to unlocking the deepest freedom imaginable. To understand this, let us turn to one of the most famous dialogues in Buddhist history, the meeting between the powerful Greco-Bactrian king, Milinda, and a humble Buddhist monk named Nagasena. King Milinda was a formidable intellectual, a master of debate, and he was skeptical. He approached Nagasena and, after the initial greetings, went straight to the heart of the matter. "Venerable sir, what is your name? By what name are you known?" Nagasena replied, "I am known as Nagasena, your master, but this is just a designation, a name in common use. For in the ultimate sense, there is no permanent person to be found here." The king was delighted, thinking he had caught the monk in a contradiction. "If there is no person," he challenged, "then who is it that wears these robes? Who eats, sleeps, and walks? Who is it that I am speaking to right now?" He believed he had cornered Nagasena with flawless logic, but Nagasena, calm and unperturbed, responded with a question of his own. "Your Master, you are a great king. You must have traveled here in a royal chariot. Please, describe this chariot to me." The king agreed. "Did you come here because of the wheels?" Nagasena asked. "Certainly not," said the king. "Then was it the axle, the frame, the yoke, the reins?" To each question, the king had to answer no. Then, Nagasena continued, "Is the chariot something separate from all of its parts?" Again, the king had to say no. Nagasena smiled gently. Then, "Your Master, I cannot see this chariot. You say you arrived in a chariot, but when we investigate, there is no chariot to be found. Is chariot then just a sound? A mere word?" The king, a wise man, understood the brilliant teaching. He conceded, "Venerable Nagasena, I have not lied. Chariot is simply a convenient designation, a name given to the collection of the wheels, the axle, the frame, and all the other parts, assembled and working in relation to one another." Nagasena's eyes shone with approval. "Exactly so, Your Master, and just as chariot is a convenient name for a collection of parts, so too is Nagasena, a convenient name for this collection of physical and mental components. In the ultimate sense, there is no solid and dependent entity, only a dynamic, interdependent process. This is the heart of anatta. We are not a thing. We are a process. We are not a noun. We are a verb. To make this clear, the Buddha analyzed the human experience into 5 categories, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. This is our own chariot, and like Nagasena, we must investigate its parts to see if we can find a self anywhere. The first aggregate is form, or rupa. This is our physical body and the entire material world. Is your body the real you at first? We might think so, but as we saw with Annika, the body is constantly changing. It gets sick. It gets old. It is not fully under our control. If you had an arm amputated, would you be any less you? Of course not. The body is a part of our experience, but it cannot be the permanent, independent self we are looking for. It is the first part of the chariot. The second aggregate is feeling, or vedana. This refers to the raw sensations that arise when our senses make contact with the world. These are categorized into 3 types: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Are your feelings the real you? Think about it. Feelings are like the weather, constantly changing. One moment, a pleasant feeling of joy arises. The next, an unpleasant feeling of frustration. If you were your happiness, where would you go when sadness arrived? Feelings are fleeting, impersonal events that happen to us. They are not who we are. The third aggregate is perception, or sana. This is the faculty of the mind that recognizes, labels, and categorizes. When your eye sees a shape and your mind says tree, that is perception. When a sad feeling arises and your mind labels it sadness, that is perception. Is this process of labeling the real you? No. It is simply a cognitive function, a mechanism. It depends on the sense organs and the feeling to even operate. It is another part of the machine, but it is not the ghost in the machine. The fourth aggregate is mental formations, or sankhara. This is a broad category that includes all of our other mental activities, our thoughts, beliefs, opinions, moods, habits, desire, aversions, and intentions. This is the aggregate we most often mistake for ourself. We think, my thoughts are me, my personality is me, my beliefs define who I am. But let us investigate. Can you control your next thought? Thoughts seem to arise from nowhere. Do your beliefs never change? An opinion you held fiercely a decade ago might seem foolish to you now. Our moods are notoriously fickle. Our habits, while strong, can be changed with effort. These mental formations are all conditioned processes, ripples in the stream of the mind, not a solid, unchanging core. They are the most ornate and decorated parts of the chariot, but they are still just parts. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness, or vijnana. This is the raw faculty of knowing, the basic awareness that is present when we see, hear, taste, touch, or think. One might think, aha, this is it. This pure awareness must be the real me, the soul, the watcher. But the Buddha was radical in his analysis here as well. He taught that consciousness is not a monolithic entity that exists on its own. It is also a conditioned process. It arises in dependence upon the other aggregates. There is seeing consciousness, which depends on an eye and a visible form. There is hearing consciousness, which depends on an ear and a sound. There is thinking consciousness, which depends on the mind and a thought. Consciousness does not exist in a vacuum. It is not a separate observer looking out from inside your head. It is the very light of knowing that arises when the sense organs, the sense objects, and the other mental faculties come together. It, too, is part of the flow. So we have taken apart the chariot, piece by piece, and we have found no central, controlling, permanent chariot self. We have investigated our own experience, and we have found only a collection of changing, interdependent processes. The self, the ego, the me that we cherish and defend so fiercely, is a mental construct. It is a useful story we tell ourselves to navigate the world, but it is a story, not a fact. And what is the result of seeing this? It is not despair. It is an unimaginable unburdening. If there is no fixed self to defend, think of what you are freed from. You are freed from the constant anxiety about your reputation, about what others think of me. You are freed from the need to always be right, to protect your opinions as if they were your very life. The sting of criticism is lessened because it is not landing on a solid entity, but passing through an open process. The fear of death loses its ultimate terror. The thing we fear losing, that solid me, was never truly there to begin with. And most beautifully, the hard, artificial barrier between self and other begins to dissolve. When I see that my suffering arises from the same conditioned processes as your suffering, how can I not feel compassion? Of course, this understanding can be disorienting if there is no one in charge. Who is it that makes choices? Who is responsible for what I do? This very practical question shifts our focus away from a fruitless search for who we are and toward the crucial importance of what we do. It leads us directly to the next great law of reality, the law that governs the actions of this selfless process we call a person. It leads us to the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. We have just walked through one of the most challenging and radical landscapes of human thought, the landscape of anatta, or no self. We have taken apart the chariot of our identity and found no permanent, independent driver at the wheel. We have seen that we are not a solid entity, but a dynamic, flowing process. This insight, while liberating, can leave us feeling untethered. It raises an immediate and crucial question. If there is no fixed self, then who is responsible for my actions? Who makes choices? Who experiences happiness and suffering? The Buddha's answer to this does not point back to a hidden self, but forward to a universal law, a natural principle as fundamental as gravity. This is the law of karma. Like nirvana, the word karma has drifted into popular culture and become burdened with deep misunderstandings. We often hear it used to mean fate or destiny, a pre-written script that we are powerless to change, or we think of it as a system of cosmic justice, a celestial judge keeping a tally of our good and bad deeds, ready to dispense reward and punishment. These ideas are not the teaching of the Buddha. Karma is not a rigid, deterministic fate, nor is it a system of external judgment. It is something far more intimate, natural, and empowering. Karma, in its essence, is the law of cause and effect as it applies to intentional action. The Buddha stated it most clearly when he said, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma. Having intended, one acts through body, a speech, and mind." The key word here, the very heart of this entire law, is intention. In Pali, the word is cetana. This is the volition, the will, the motivation behind our actions. This is what gives an action its moral weight, its karmic charge. the outer action itself can be misleading. Imagine you are walking and you accidentally step on a small insect, killing it. Now imagine another scenario where you see an insect and, out of malice or cruelty, you deliberately crush it. The external result is the same, one dead insect, but the internal intention, the cetana, is worlds apart. In the first case, there was no will to harm, so the karmic seed planted is negligible. In the second, the action was born from an intention of cruelty, and so it plants a potent, unwholesome seed in the mind stream. Consider the act of giving. One person might give a gift out of a genuine, open-hearted desire to bring happiness to another. A second person might give the exact same gift, but with the hidden intention of manipulating the receiver or making themselves look generous to others. The outer action is identical, but the quality of the karmic seed planted is completely different. Karma is not about what we do. It is about why we do it. To understand how this works, the most helpful metaphor is that of a farmer planting seeds in a garden. Your mind stream, this selfless process of consciousness, is the garden. It is a field of fertile soil. Every moment, you are planting seeds in this field. The seeds are your intentions, the actions of your body, eye, speech, and mind are the process of planting. Intentions that are rooted in what the Buddha called the three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion are like planting seeds of thorns, weeds, and poisonous nightshade. Intentions that are rooted in their opposites: generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom are like planting seeds of nourishing grains, beautiful flowers, and healing herbs. Once a seed is planted, it does not necessarily sprout immediately. The farmer knows this. A seed requires the right conditions to ripen: fertile soil, water, sunlight, and time. In the same way, a karmic seed, an intentional action, may lie dormant in our mind stream for a very long time. It will ripen and bear its fruit, its result, or vipaka, only when the appropriate conditions arise. This explains so much of the seeming injustice we see in the world. We see a kind and generous person who experiences great tragedy, and we ask why. We see a cruel and exploitative person who seems to prosper, and we feel the universe is unfair. But we are only seeing the present moment. We are not seeing the vast field of seeds that each person has planted over countless moments in the past. The kind person may be experiencing the ripening of an old, unwholesome seed from a long-forgotten action, while the cruel person may be enjoying the fruit of a past generosity. But make no mistake, the thorny seeds being planted by the cruel person today will ripen when the conditions are right. The nourishing seeds being planted by the kind person will bear their sweet fruit in time. The law is patient and infallible. This understanding of karma, far from being fatalistic, is the ultimate empowerment. It places the responsibility for our lives squarely in our own hands. We are not the victims of a predetermined fate. We are the farmers of our own reality. The past has already happened. The seeds from yesterday and yesteryear are already in the ground. We cannot change that. Some of those seeds will ripen today, bringing us experiences of joy or sorrow that we must learn to meet with wisdom and equanimity. But the present moment, this very moment right now, is a new seed time. In this moment, you have a choice. You can continue to unconsciously sow the seeds of anger, jealousy, and craving, and in doing so, guarantee a future harvest of suffering. Or you can choose, with conscious intention, to begin planting seeds of kindness, patience, generosity, and understanding. You can start cultivating a different kind of garden. This is the beautiful interplay between anatta and karma. The doctrine of no self frees us from the burden of being a fixed, solid entity. It shows us we are a process. The doctrine of karma empowers us by showing that we can guide that process. We are the creators of our own becoming. Our happiness and our suffering are not random accidents. They are, for the most part, the harvest of the seeds we have sown ourselves. The life we are living today is the result of the intentions and actions of our past. The life we will live tomorrow is being shaped by the intentions we are cultivating right now. There is no external being to blame or to petition. The power lies within the quality of our own heart and mind. And so, we arrive at the next, most logical and practical step in our journey. If our intentions are the seeds of our reality, and the mind is the field where these seeds are sown, then everything depends on the state of that field. Everything depends on our ability to work with the mind itself. For most of us, our mind is not a well-tended garden. It is a wild, overgrown jungle, a chaotic place where the weeds of habitual thought patterns grow thick and fast. It is like a wild elephant, powerful and untamed, crashing through the forest of our lives, driven by fear and instinct. If we are to become skillful farmers of our own karma, we must first learn to approach this wild and powerful mind. We must learn to tame it, not with force or aggression, but with patience, kindness, and skill. Our next task is to learn how to befriend the wild elephant of the mind. We have arrived at a pivotal understanding. Our lives are shaped by the law of karma, the law of intentional action. Our minds are the fertile field where the seeds of our future are sown in every moment. This grants us incredible power, the power of the farmer to cultivate a beautiful garden. But when we first turn inward to inspect this field, most of us are met with a shock. It is not a calm, orderly garden waiting for our instruction. It is a wild, untamed wilderness. The Buddha used two powerful metaphors to describe the untrained mind. The first is the monkey mind, a restless creature that is never still, swinging wildly from one branch of thought to the next, chattering incessantly, grabbing for this, pushing away that, living in a constant state of agitation. The second, and perhaps deeper metaphor, is that of a wild elephant, an animal of immense power, capable of both great work and great destruction, but currently ruled by deep-seated fear, instinct, and ancient habits. It crashes through the jungle of our days, leaving a trail of chaos in its wake. If you have ever tried to meditate, even for just a few minutes, you have met this wild elephant. You have felt its raw, untamed power. This experience can be deeply frustrating. We sit down with the noble intention of finding peace, of watching our breath, and within seconds, the mind has been hijacked. We are lost in a detailed plan for the afternoon. We are replaying a conversation from yesterday, editing our dialogue to be more clever. We are worrying about a future event that may never happen. We are swept away by a wave of self-criticism, or a fragment of a song plays on a loop. This is not a sign that you are a bad meditator, or that you are incapable of finding peace. This is the universal human experience. This is the default state of the untrained mind. For millennia, our minds evolved to be threat detection machines, constantly scanning the past for mistakes and the future for dangers. This was a survival mechanism, but in our modern world, this mechanism, left unchecked, has become a source of chronic anxiety and restlessness. The goal of our practice is not to kill the monkey or to destroy the elephant. That would be a violent and fruitless struggle. The goal is to befriend this wild energy, to understand it, and to gently, patiently train it. The first and most important step in this training is to make a profound discovery: the difference between being lost in thought and being aware of thought. For most of our lives, we are completely fused with our thinking process. When a worried thought appears, we are the worry. When an angry thought appears, we are the anger. The story in our head is our reality. Mindfulness practice introduces a revolutionary shift in perspective. It is the moment when, lost in a daydream, you suddenly wake up and realize, "Oh, I was thinking." That moment of realization is everything. It is as if you have been completely absorbed in a movie, believing you are the hero in peril. Then, for a split second, you become aware that you are actually sitting safely in a dark theater, watching images flicker on a screen. You are not the character. You are the one who is watching. This space, this gap between the watcher and the thought, is the beginning of freedom. The entire practice of taming the mind is about learning to widen this space and to rest within it more and more often. This is where the story of taming the wild elephant becomes our practical guide. In ancient India, when a wild elephant was captured, the first thing the trainers would do is tie it with a strong rope to a solid, deeply rooted post. The wild elephant, our mind, is full of the wild energy of our habitual patterns of thought. The strong, solid post is our object of meditation, the anchor we have already discovered, the simple, physical sensation of the breath. The rope is mindfulness itself, the strand of attention that we use to gently connect the mind to the breath. What happens next is predictable. The elephant rages. It hates this new restriction. It pulls. It strains. It trumpets with fury. It circles the post frantically, trying with all its immense strength to break the rope and run back to the familiar jungle of distraction. This is exactly what our mind does when we first try to meditate. It rebels. It throws up a storm of thoughts. It creates physical discomfort. It generates intense boredom or sleepiness. It does everything in its power to break free from the discipline of staying with the breath. Now, the skill of the elephant trainer is not to beat the elephant into submission. That would only create more fear and trauma. The trainer's job is simply to be patient, to make sure the post is strong and the rope holds. He lets the elephant exhaust its frantic energy. In the same way, our job in meditation is not to fight or suppress our thoughts. That only creates more inner conflict. Our job is simply to hold our ground, to trust in our anchor. When the mind pulls violently away, we don't pull back with equal violence. We just gently, patiently notice that it has wandered, and we guide it back. The instruction remains the same. The mind has wandered. That's okay. Let's come back to the breath. Over time, a profound shift occurs. The elephant begins to understand that the post is unshakable and the rope will hold. It realizes that its struggle is fruitless and exhausting. And so, it begins to settle down. the frantic circles become slower walks. The trumpeting of rage softens. Eventually, it may even stand peacefully by the post, calm and attentive. Once the elephant is calm, the trainer can approach it, offer it food, and begin to build a relationship of trust. So too with our mind. As we patiently keep returning to the breath, the frantic energy of the monkey mind begins to subside. The mind learns that it is safe to be still. It is in this state of growing calm that we can begin to work with our mind more skillfully. We can use simple techniques to help this process. One is the practice of mental noting, or labeling. When a particularly strong thought pattern arises, instead of getting swept away by its story, we can gently affix a label to it in our mind. If we find ourselves worrying about money, we can just softly say to ourselves, worrying. If we are rehearsing an argument, we can just note, planning. If a wave of self-judgment appears, we can label it, judging. This simple act is incredibly powerful. It turns the thought from a subjective reality that has hijacked us into an objective event that we are observing. It creates that all-important space. Another beautiful metaphor is to see your awareness as the vast, open sky. Your thoughts and feelings are the clouds that drift through it. Some days the sky is filled with dark, stormy clouds of anger or sadness. Other days it is filled with light, puffy clouds of happiness. Sometimes it is perfectly clear, but through it all, the sky itself is unchanged, unyarmed, and untouched by the clouds that pass through it. Your true nature is this sky-like awareness. The practice is to learn to rest as the sky, allowing the clouds to come and go without resistance. Taming the mind is not a battle to be won. It is a relationship to be cultivated. It is a lifelong practice of patience and, most importantly, of kindness toward our own chaotic, beautiful, wild mind. As we continue this gentle work, the elephant becomes calmer, the monkey becomes quieter, the inner sky becomes clearer. We begin to notice the texture of our experience with greater subtlety. We can see that not all clouds are the same. Some are just wispy thoughts, but others are charged with a powerful energy, a palpably feeling tone. We call these clouds emotions. Our next step on this journey is to learn how to meet these powerful energies with the same mindful awareness, to watch the storms of emotion without being swept away by the wind and the rain. Having spent some time with the wild elephant of the mind, having practiced the gentle art of returning again and again to the anchor of the breath, we begin to notice a change. The inner chaos may not have vanished entirely, but the frantic, desperate struggle begins to subside. In the growing stillness, our perception becomes more refined. We can now look more closely at the inner landscape, not just as a chaotic jungle, but as a dynamic weather system. We can see that while some mental events are like light, wispy, cloud-simple thoughts that drift by without much energy, others are like great, looming thunderheads. They are charged with a palpable energy, a physical and visceral force. These are what we call emotions. For most of our lives, our relationship with our emotions is one of constant battle. We are engaged in a relentless project of emotional control. The strategy is simple. When good emotions like joy, excitement, or pleasure arise, our immediate impulse is to grasp them, to hold on tight, to make them stay. And when bad emotions like fear, anger, sadness, or jealousy ariza, our impulse is to do everything in our power to avoid them, to suppress them, to numb them, or to distract ourselves from their presence. We binge eat. We lose ourselves in work. We scroll endlessly through our phones anything to avoid feeling the discomfort. This constant cycle of clinging and resisting is utterly exhausting. It is the very essence of the struggle that defines a life of suffering. The mindful path offers a radical alternative. It suggests that we stop fighting the weather. It invites us to see that our awareness is like the vast, open sky, and our emotions are simply the clouds that pass through it. The sky does not grab the beautiful, sunlit clouds and command them to stay. The sky does not shrink in fear from the dark, stormy clouds and try to push them away. The sky, in its immense, accepting nature, simply allows all weather to arise, to be what it is, and to pass in its own natural time. To cultivate this sky-like mind is the practice. It is the courageous and compassionate act of giving ourselves permission to feel what we are feeling, without judgment and without a desperate need to fix or change it. It is about learning to be with our emotions as they are, not as we wish them to be. This is the path to true emotional resilience and freedom. But how do we do this in a practical way? When a powerful emotion like anger or anxiety arises, it can feel like a tidal wave that completely overwhelms us. The key is to shift our attention from the story of the emotion to the direct physical sensation of the emotion in the body. An emotion is not just an idea in our head, it is a cascade of physical energy. So, when a wave of anger arises, instead of getting lost in the mental loop of, "He shouldn't have said that. This is so unfair. I'm going to tell him," we gently redirect our attention downward, into the body. Where do you feel anger? Perhaps you notice a tightness in your jaw, a clenching in your fists, a burning sensation in your chest or stomach, a surge of heat rising to your face. Your only job is to bring a gentle, curious awareness to these raw physical sensations. You don't need to name them anger. You just need to feel them. Feel the heat. Feel the tension. Feel the vibration. Breathe with it. Create a space around it with your awareness. When a wave of anxiety appears, instead of getting caught in the catastrophic stories of what might go wrong, bring your attention into the body. Where is the anxiety living right now? Is it a fluttering in your chest, a cold knot in the pit of your stomach, a trembling in your hands, a shallowness in your breath? Can you just be with that sensation? Can you observe it with the curiosity of a scientist discovering a new phenomenon? You will notice something remarkable. When you strip away the mental story, the raw physical sensation of the emotion is just that, a sensation. It may be intense, it may be unpleasant, but it is bearable, and, like all sensations, it is impermanent. It arises, crests like a wave, and eventually it dissolves. By learning to meet our emotions at this raw, physical level, we are learning to metabolize their energy, to let them flow through us without getting stuck and turning into a toxic, long-term mood. The Buddha told a story that perfectly illustrates this process. He said that an ordinary person, when confronted with a painful event, is struck by an arrow, but the practitioner of this path, when struck by that same arrow, does not suffer in the same way. What does this mean? He explained, it is the parable of the two arrows. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life itself. It is the sharp sting of being criticized. It is the ache of loss. It is the fear of uncertainty. It is the physical pain of sickness or injury. These first arrows are a natural part of the human experience. As long as we are alive, we will be struck by them from time to time. There is no armor that can protect us completely. The suffering, however, comes from the second arrow. The second arrow is the one we shoot at ourselves. It is our reaction to the first arrow. The first arrow strikes, and then our mind fires the second arrow of, "Why me? This is terrible. This shouldn't be happening. I can't stand this." It is the arrow of judgment, of resistance, of self-pity, of catastrophic storytelling. The first arrow causes clean pain. The second arrow causes suffering. The first arrow is the event. The second arrow is our interpretation of the event. For example, the first arrow is someone saying an unkind word to you. The immediate, raw feeling is the sting of that first arrow. The second arrow is the story we tell for the next 3 days, replaying their words, imagining our comebacks, ruminating on how wronged we were, feeling our identity has been assaulted. Mindfulness practice is the art of learning not to fire the second arrow. We train ourselves to stay with the clean pain of the first arrow. We feel the sting. We feel the heat in our chest. We acknowledge the raw sensation of being hurt, and we let it be. We don't add the layer of mental proliferation. We find that the pain of the first arrow, when met with this kind of spacious awareness, is entirely bearable. It passes through us, and we learn that we are strong enough to endure it. We are the sky, not the storm. By practicing in this way, we cultivate a profound sense of trust in ourselves. We learn that we don't need to be afraid of our own emotional life. We discover that sadness will not destroy us, anger will not consume us, and fear will not paralyze us. As long as we meet them with awareness, we are larger than any single emotion. This practice moves us from being a victim of our emotional weather to being a wise and compassionate observer of it. So far, our journey of training has been largely observational. We have learned to watch our breath, to watch our thoughts, to watch our emotions. But is this the entirety of the path? Are we only ever meant to be passive observers? The Buddha taught that while observation is the foundation, it is not the whole building. Having learned to quiet the mind and create a stable inner space, we can now begin to actively cultivate certain qualities of heart. We can become skillful gardeners who choose to plant beautiful flowers in the field of our mind. This begins the next phase of our journey, the generative practices, starting with the most powerful flower of all, the practice of metta, or boundless loving kindness. We have been practicing the art of observation. We have sat quietly, watching the breath, noticing the ceaseless river of thoughts, and allowing the stormy clouds of emotion to pass through the sky of our awareness. This practice of mindfulness is the foundation. It creates space, it cultivates calm, and it builds a stable platform of non-reactive presence. But the path of awakening is not only about watching, it is also about actively cultivating, about becoming a skillful gardener of the heart. Having cleared some of the weeds of distraction, we can now consciously choose to plant seeds of beauty and warmth. We begin this generative work with the most fundamental of the heart's wholesome qualities, a practice called metta. Metta is a word from the Pali language that can be translated as loving kindness, friendliness, gentle goodwill, or benevolence. It is an unconditional, open-hearted wish for the well-being of ourselves and all living things. But we must be very clear about what metta is not. It is not the sentimental, possessive, or conditional love that we often see in movies or hear about in songs. It is not romantic love, nor is it the love that says, "I will love you if you meet my needs." It does not mean you have to like everyone or approve of their actions. Metta is something far more radical and vast. It is the quality of the sun, which shines its warmth down on everyone and everything without discrimination. The saint and the sinner, the flower and the weed, the beautiful and the broken. It is a steady, benevolent radiation of the heart, a simple and profound wish for all beings to be happy and free from harm. This practice is the direct and powerful antidote to the poisons of anger, resentment, fear, and ill will, while mindfulness creates a space around a feeling like anger. Metta actively fills that space with its opposite, with warmth and acceptance. It is a profound repatterning of our habitual tendency to contract in fear and judgment, teaching us instead to open with courage and kindness. The practice of metta meditation is a systematic unfolding of the heart. We begin where we are and gently expand the circle of our goodwill outwards. So, find a comfortable posture, just as you would for breath meditation. Allow your body to relax and your mind to settle. Let go of any agenda or expectation. The goal is not to force a feeling, but to gently invite one. The practice begins in the most essential and often the most difficult place, with ourselves. We cannot offer water to others from a dry and empty well. We must learn to offer this kindness to ourselves first. So, bring your awareness into the center of your chest, the area of your heart. You might place a hand there to help focus your attention, and you can begin to silently, gently, repeat a few simple phrases. The traditional phrases are a good starting point, but you can adapt them to whatever resonates with you. Softly, inwardly, offer yourself these wishes. May I be safe. May I be healthy and strong. May I be happy. May I live my life with ease. As you repeat these phrases, don't worry if you don't feel a sudden rush of self-love. For many of us, this is difficult territory, filled with self-judgment. The practice is not to feel a certain way, but to simply offer the intention, patiently, kindly. You repeat the phrases like a gentle rain, falling on hard, dry ground. May I be safe. May I be happy. Once you have spent some time offering this kindness to yourself, the second stage is to bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend. Think of someone for whom you have easy, uncomplicated feelings of warmth and appreciation. It could be a teacher, a close friend, a beloved family member, or even a pet. Picture them in your mind's eye. See them happy and smiling. And now, direct the same phrases, the same warm wishes toward them. Hold their image in your heart and wish, may you be safe. May you be healthy and strong. May you be happy. May you live your life with ease. Allow yourself to feel the natural warmth, the simple joy that arises from wishing another well. Rest in that feeling. This is the natural state of your heart when it is not clouded by fear or resentment. In the third stage, we begin to stretch the heart. Bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see in your daily life, but have no strong feelings about one way or the other. It might be the cashier at your local market, the person who delivers your mail, someone you pass on your daily commute. You may not even know their name. See them in your mind and recognize that this person, just like you, wants to be happy. Just like you, they want to be free from suffering. They have their own hopes, dreams, and fears. Recognizing this shared humanity, you now extend the same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you live with ease. In this stage, we are actively working against the mind's tendency to live in a world of indifference, to see other people as mere background characters in our own story. We are acknowledging our shared heart. The fourth stage is the most transformative and the most challenging. Here, we gently bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom you have a conflict, a person who has hurt you, or someone whose actions you find frustrating. It is important to be wise here. Do not start with your greatest enemy. Start with someone who is only mildly irritating. The purpose of this stage is not to condone their harmful actions or to force yourself to feel a superficial forgiveness. The purpose is profoundly selfish. It is to free your own heart from the prison of resentment. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So, holding this person's image in your mind, you acknowledge that their harmful actions likely come from their own pain, their own ignorance, their own suffering. From that understanding, you can, as an act of liberation for yourself, extend the wish. May you too find peace. May you too be free from the anger that causes you to harm others. May you too be happy. This can be incredibly difficult, but even the slightest flicker of this intention is a profound act of healing. Finally, in the fifth stage, we make the heart boundless. Having worked with these different individuals, we now let the feeling of metta expand in all directions. Picture it radiating out from your heart like a golden light. First, to everyone in the building around you, then to everyone in your neighborhood, your city. Extend it to all people in your country and all countries of the world. Extend it to all animals, birds, insects, all creatures great and small. Extend it to all beings seen and unseen, near and far, in the past, present, and future, holding all of life in your heart. You offer the universal wish. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. This practice is not just a passive, feel-good exercise. It is a source of immense power. There is a story of the Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, who plotted to have him killed. He arranged for a notoriously savage elephant named Nalagiri to be intoxicated with alcohol and then released onto the narrow street where the Buddha was walking. When the people saw the enraged elephant charging, they screamed and ran for their lives. The Buddha's loyal attendant, Ananda, tried to run in front of him to act as a shield, but the Buddha calmly told him to stand aside. He stood perfectly still, facing the charging, trumpeting beast. He did not prepare to fight or to defend himself. Instead, he simply opened his heart and radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta toward the confused and suffering animal. The story says that as the elephant entered this palpable field of loving kindness, it suddenly stopped in its tracks. Its drunken rage completely dissolved. It became calm, walked peacefully to the Buddha, and knelt before him. It was subdued not by any physical force, but by the sheer, unshakable power of a mind filled with unconditional love. This is the strength we cultivate with metta. It is a shield that protects us from our own fear and anger, and a warmth that can soothe the anger and fear in others. It is the end of loneliness, the ultimate source of connection. As we practice metta, we are creating a new habit of the heart. But metta is a broad wish for happiness. What happens when we are confronted with the specific, undeniable reality of another's pain? A simple wish for them to be happy might feel incomplete. At that moment, the heart is called to manifest a different quality, a more engaged and responsive form of love. This quality, which arises naturally from the ground of metta, is karuna, or compassion. We have begun the beautiful work of actively cultivating warmth in the garden of the heart. With the practice of metta, we learn to radiate a gentle, unconditional goodwill, like the sun shining on all of life without exception. We learn to wish for ourselves and all beings to be happy and well. This practice opens the heart, dissolving the cold walls of indifference and fear. But life, in its profound and often painful reality, does not only present us with opportunities for wishing well, it also presents us with undeniable suffering. We see a friend grieving a loss. We read a news story of a community devastated by a natural disaster. We witness the quiet desperation in the eyes of a stranger. We feel the sharp sting of our own pain. In these moments, a simple wish for happiness can feel distant, almost inadequate. The heart, when it is open, is called to respond in a different way. It is called to manifest a quality that is more intimate, more tender, more engaged. This quality is karuna. It is the second of the four immeasurable states of heart. It is compassion. The word compassion is often used, but its deep meaning is frequently lost. The essence of karuna is sometimes described as the trembling or quivering of the heart in the face of suffering. It is the heart's direct, visceral response to pain. It is the capacity to feel with another, to stand with them in their suffering, and to have the sincere aspiration to see that suffering be relieved. It is not a thought or an intellectual idea. It is a movement of the heart itself. Karuna arises from the recognition of our shared vulnerability. It understands that the pain another feels is a pain I too could feel, or have felt. It sees that beneath our different faces and life stories, we are all subject to the same fundamental conditions of birth, sickness, old age, and death. This recognition dissolves the illusion of separation. It is crucial here to distinguish true compassion, karuna, from its near enemy, which is pity. On the surface, they can look similar, but at their root, they are opposites. Pity creates distance. When we feel pity for someone, there is an implicit sense of, poor you. We look down from a position of perceived safety or superiority. There is a subtle thought of, I am here, and I am okay, and you are down there, in your unfortunate situation. I am glad I am not you. Pity, therefore, can actually reinforce the ego. It strengthens the sense of a separate, unaffected self. Karuna, on the other hand, closes the distance. It is a feeling of solidarity. It arises from the understanding that we are in this together. The feeling of compassion is not poor you, but I am with you. It is the courage to let another's pain touch our own heart, to acknowledge our shared humanity. It does not speak from a place of superiority, but from a place of shared being. Pity is looking down. Compassion is looking across. Eye to eye. Heart to heart. So how do we cultivate this brave and tender quality? Like metta, it is a practice of intention. It begins with the willingness to not turn away from suffering. Our culture teaches us to avoid discomfort at all costs, to seek distraction from anything painful. The practice of karuna asks us to gently and with great care for our own well-being, to be willing to look. We can practice this in meditation. We begin by finding a place of calm, perhaps by first cultivating a feeling of metta for ourselves, filling our own well. Then, we can gently bring to mind someone we know who is suffering. It is wise to start with someone whose suffering is not completely overwhelming to us. Perhaps a friend with a difficult illness, or a family member going through a hard time. We hold them in our heart. We allow ourselves to acknowledge the reality of their pain, and then we offer them phrases of compassion. May you be free from this suffering. May you find the strength to meet this challenge. May your pain be eased. May you find peace. Notice the focus here. We are not getting lost in the drama of their story. We are not trying to fix their problem in our mind. We are connecting with the sincere wish for them to be free from their pain. We are letting our heart tremble, but we are anchoring that trembling in a wholesome aspiration. As we get more comfortable with this, we can slowly expand the circle. We can bring to mind the suffering of those we don't know, the victims of war or famine. We can even, most courageously, turn this compassion inward, toward our own deepest wounds, our own sorrows, our own secret pain. We can hold our own suffering with this same tender quality. May I be free from this suffering. May I be kind to myself in this pain. May I find peace. End Prus. In the great traditions of Mahayana Buddhism, the ideal practitioner is not the one who achieves a solitary peace for themselves and disappears from the world. The ideal is the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is a being who has cultivated such profound wisdom that they stand on the very threshold of nirvana, the complete cessation of all suffering. Yet, they make a courageous and extraordinary vow. They turn back from that final peace. They choose to remain in the world of birth and death, of joy and sorrow. Out of one motivation, immeasurable compassion, the bodhisattva hears the cries of the world, what the poet Thich Nhat Hanh calls the shared tear, and they cannot bear to enter a state of final peace for themselves, while others are still lost in suffering. The archetypal image of this is the figure of Avalokiteshvara, known in Vietnam as Quan the Am, the one who perceives the sounds of the world. She is often depicted with 1,000 arms, each arm representing a skillful means to help alleviate suffering. This is the energy of karuna. It is not a passive, sorrowful state. It is an active, engaged, and empowered response to the reality of pain. But a question naturally arises. If we open our hearts to all the suffering in the world, won't we be completely overwhelmed? Won't we burn out in a state of hopeless depression? This is a very real danger, often called compassion fatigue or idiot compassion. True karuna must be balanced and protected by wisdom, orpanya, and by equanimity, or upekha. Wisdom reminds us that we are not the sole saviors of the universe. We understand the vast and complex web of karma. We recognize that we cannot fix everyone's problems, and that trying to do so is a form of ego. Wisdom allows us to do what we can with an open heart, while letting go of the outcome. Equanimity is the quality of a calm, balanced mind. It is the steady hand of the surgeon in the emergency room. The surgeon must have compassion to do her work, but if she is overwhelmed by the emotion of every injury, she will be unable to operate skillfully. In the same way, we learn to keep our heart open to pain while keeping our mind stable and clear. This balanced compassion is a source of immense strength, not weakness. Karuna is the heart's answer to the truth of dukkha. It transforms pain from something to be feared and resisted into an opportunity for profound connection and love. It is the realization that the deepest healing comes not from avoiding our shared wounds, but from touching them with tenderness and care. Together, metta and karuna create a resilient and complete heart, a heart that can wish for happiness for all, and can stay present and open when suffering appears. But our emotional life is complex. We have dealt with our response to suffering. Now we must ask, what is our response to joy? When we see others succeeding, when they experience good fortune and happiness, does our heart expand with them, or do we feel a subtle, quiet pang of jealousy or comparison? Our journey into the heart now leads us to this bright and sometimes challenging quality, the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. We have journeyed deep into the heart's capacity for love. With metta, we cultivated the warm, unconditional wish for all beings to be happy. With karuna, we learn to meet the reality of suffering with a tender, trembling heart, wishing for all beings to be free from pain. These two wings, loving kindness and compassion, allow us to fly through the world with a heart that is both soft and strong. But there is a third essential quality we must cultivate to make the heart complete, a quality that can be surprisingly challenging in our modern world. We have learned how to respond to the wish for happiness and to the reality of suffering. But how do we respond to the reality of another's happiness? What happens in our heart when we see someone else succeed, prosper, or experience great joy? This is the territory of mudita, the third of the four immeasurable states. Mudita is often translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. It is the ability to rejoice in the good fortune of others, to feel happy because they are happy. If karuna is the shared tear, mudita is the shared smile. It is the heart's capacity for selfless celebration. In a world often driven by competition, comparison, and a quiet sense of scarcity, mudita is a rare and precious jewel. To understand the beauty of mudita, we must first be brutally honest about its opposite, which is the subtle and pervasive poison of envy and jealousy. For many of us, this is our default reaction. A colleague receives a promotion we wanted, and while we may offer congratulations, deep inside there is a bitter, sinking feeling. A friend posts beautiful pictures of a wonderful vacation, and we feel a pang of dissatisfaction with our own lives. We scroll through social media, which often functions as a curated highlight reel of other people's successes, and we are left feeling inadequate, as if our own life doesn't measure up. This experience is born from a deep, unconscious belief in scarcity. It is the mindset that happiness, success, and good fortune are a limited pie. If someone else gets a large slice, there is less available for me. This belief turns life into a constant, zero-sum game. The success of another feels like a personal failure. This mindset is a prison. It isolates us. It breeds resentment. It shrinks our world down to the narrow, anxious confines of our own ego, and it guarantees our own unhappiness, because there will always be someone who has more than us. Mudita is the radical antidote to this poison. It is the key that unlocks the prison of envy. Mudita is based on the profound understanding that joy is not a limited resource. It is infinite and abundant. Happiness is not a pie with a finite number of slices. It is a fire. When you use your candle to light another's, your own flame is not diminished in the slightest. In fact, the total amount of light in the room has now doubled. This is the logic of mudita. To rejoice in the happiness of others does not take anything away from you. It multiplies the total joy available in the world and allows you to partake in it. When you cultivate mudita, your opportunities for happiness become limitless. You are no longer restricted to only your own personal successes. You can feel joy when a stranger laughs, when a friend achieves a lifelong dream, when an artist creates a beautiful work, when a community thrives. The entire world's good fortune becomes a source of nourishment for your own heart. So, how do we begin to cultivate this bright and boundless state? We start, as always, where it is easiest. Find a quiet and comfortable position. Let your mind settle. The first step in practicing mudita is to bring to mind someone whose happiness and success brings you genuine, uncomplicated joy. For many, the easiest person to start with is a beloved child, or a very dear friend for whom you feel no sense of competition. Picture this person clearly in your mind. Now, reflect on their good qualities, their successes, their moments of joy. Perhaps they have a wonderful talent, or they have achieved something they worked hard for, or you simply recall a time you saw them purely happy and carefree. As you reflect on their good fortune, notice the feeling that arises in your own heart. It is likely a feeling of warmth, of pride, of genuine happiness for them. This feeling is mudita. Linger with it. Savor it. To strengthen this feeling, you can use phrases, just as we did with metta. Silently repeat, "I am so happy for you. I rejoice in your good fortune. May your happiness and success continue. May your joy increase." After spending some time with this person, you can begin to expand the circle. Bring to mind a neutral person, perhaps an acquaintance or a colleague. Think of some good quality they possess or some success they have had. It might be that they are good at their job, or they have a lovely family, or they are kind to others. Try to find one thing about their life that is a source of happiness for them, and consciously choose to rejoice in it. Notice the mind's resistance, the tendency to be indifferent or to find fault. Gently let go of that resistance and offer the same phrases. "I rejoice in your happiness. May your good fortune continue." This practice starts to break down the walls of our indifference and helps us see the goodness in those around us. The most advanced and transformative stage of the practice is to try and extend mudita to someone we consider a rival or a competitor. This is where the real work lies. Bring to mind someone whose success has triggered feelings of envy in you. This is a courageous act. Instead of falling into the habitual pattern of comparison and resentment, you consciously choose a different path. You acknowledge their success, and you try, even for a moment, to wish them well. You might repeat, "Just as I wish to be happy, you also wish to be happy. I rejoice in the happiness you have found. May it continue." This act is profoundly healing. It is not about them. It is about freeing yourself from the toxic burden of envy. It is a declaration that you will no longer allow your own happiness to be dependent on the perceived failures of others. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki once said, "A Zen master's delight is to see his students surpass him." This is the pure expression of mudita. A loving parent does not envy the youth and potential of their child. They celebrate it as their own greatest joy. A great teacher is not threatened when a student becomes more brilliant than they are. It is the fulfillment of their life's work. This is the heart of mudita, a love so pure and selfless that the boundary between my happiness and your happiness becomes porous and ultimately dissolves. By practicing mudita, we free ourselves from the exhausting and painful prison of comparison. We turn a source of suffering, the success of others, into a source of infinite joy. Our hearts become lighter, more expansive, and more generous. We become a person who encourages and celebrates others, rather than one who secretly hopes they fail. We become a source of light in the world. We have now cultivated three powerful, active states of the heart: metta, the warm sun of goodwill; karuna, the gentle rain of compassion; and mudita, the joyful celebration of the harvest. These are immense and beautiful energies, but like any powerful forces, they need a container, a balancing element to ensure they are expressed with wisdom, to prevent our love from becoming clinging, our compassion from becoming despair, and our joy from becoming manic excitement. We need a fourth, final quality. We need the unshakable stability of a mountain that can withstand the winds of both fortune and misfortune. This grounding, stabilizing wisdom is the fourth immeasurable state, upekkha, or equanimity. We have walked the bright and beautiful paths of the heart. With metta, we learn to be a radiant sun of goodwill for all beings. With karuna, we learn to be a gentle rain of compassion, willing to touch the sorrows of the world. With mudita, we learn to be a joyful mirror, reflecting and amplifying the happiness and success we see around us. These three qualities, loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, are powerful, expansive, and transformative. They are the engines of a truly open heart. But any powerful engine requires a skilled driver, a balancing force that ensures its power is used wisely. A heart filled only with these active, energetic states can become unbalanced. Our love can turn into clinging attachment. Our compassion can collapse into despair and burnout. Our joy can become a form of restless agitation. To complete the architecture of a liberated heart, we need a fourth and final quality. This is the quality of profound balance, of unshakable peace, the crowning wisdom of the four immeasurable states. This is upekkha. Upekkha is a Pali word often translated as equanimity, but it also carries the meaning of balance, composure, non-reactivity, and spaciousness. It is perhaps the most subtle and misunderstood of the four heart practices. Because it involves a form of non-reaction, it is often confused with its near enemy, cold indifference. But upekkha and indifference are as different as the sun and a block of ice. Indifference is a state of contraction. It is a defense mechanism of the ego. It says, "I don't care. This doesn't affect me. I'm shutting down." Indifference builds a wall around the heart to keep the world out. It is rooted in fear and aversion. Upekkha, in stark contrast, is a state of radical openness and connection. Its foundation is not fear, but profound wisdom and love. It does not shut down the heart. It makes the heart so vast and spacious that it can hold the entirety of life's experiences without being thrown off balance. Upekkha doesn't say, "I don't care." It says, "I care so deeply, but I will not be shaken. I see the whole picture." It is the loving, spacious heart of a wise grandparent watching their grandchildren play in a park. They delight in their laughter. They feel a pang of concern when one falls, but they don't rush in frantically at every little stumble, because they have the wisdom to see the bigger picture of learning and growing. They remain a calm, loving, and supportive presence, a source of refuge, not another source of anxiety. The most powerful image for Upekkha is that of a great, ancient mountain. Imagine this mountain, majestic and deeply rooted in the earth. It sits in stillness, its peak touching the sky, and throughout the days and seasons, the 8 worldly winds blow against it. The warm, sweet wind of praise blows, and the mountain does not lean forward to grasp it. The bitter, cold wind of blame and criticism blows, and the mountain does not shrink or tremble. The gentle, nourishing wind of gain, success, and good fortune arrives, and the mountain does not puff up with pride. The harsh, dry wind of loss, failure, and misfortune comes, and the mountain does not collapse in despair. The bright, hot sun of pleasure shines upon it, and the cool, dark shadow of pain falls across it. The spotlight of fame and reputation, and the obscurity of being unknown and ignored, all these winds, all these conditions, blow from the 4 directions, but the mountain remains unmoved. It does not mean the mountain doesn't feel the weather. It feels the warmth of the sun and the chill of the frost. But its essentielle nature, its deep, grounded stability, is not defined by the temporary weather on its surface. To cultivate Upekkha is to cultivate this mountain-like quality in our own mind. Upekkha is the great protector of the other 3 heart states, allowing them to mature into their wisest forms. It brings balance to metta, or loving kindness. Pure metta is the wish for all beings to be happy. But what if, despite our best wishes, they make choices that lead to their own suffering? If our metta is not balanced by upekkha, we can become distraught, controlling, or fall into anxious attachment. Upekkha brings the wisdom that recognizes that every being is the owner of their own karma. We can love them, support them, and unconditionally wish them well. But we cannot control their journey. We love them enough to let them walk their own path. Upekkha brings wisdom to karuna, or compassion. It is the quality that prevents the tender heart of compassion from being drowned in the ocean of worldly suffering. It is the steady hand of the emergency room doctor who can treat a grievous wound with skill and focus, precisely because she is not overwhelmed by her own emotional reaction to the pain she is witnessing. Upekkha allows us to keep our heart open to suffering without losing our center, enabling us to help effectively and sustainably, preventing burnout. And upekkha brings balance to mudita, or sympathetic joy. It is wonderful to rejoice in the happiness of others, but if that joy is not balanced by equanimity, it can lead to a kind of restless excitement or even attachment to another's success, creating anxiety if their good fortune fades. Equanimity allows us to celebrate the joyful moments fully, while understanding that they too are impermanent, just like the sorrowful moments. In this way, Upekkha is like the spacious, clear sky that contains and allows the sun of metta, the rain of karuna, and the bright weather of mudita to all take place, without the sky itself being fundamentally changed. It is the pinnacle of the four sublime states, the quality that holds and harmonizes all the others. The practice for cultivating upekkha is primarily one of wise reflection. It is nurtured by contemplating the truths of anicca and karma. We can bring different people to mind loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and reflect. This person is the owner of their own actions. Their happiness and suffering arise from their own causes and conditions, not from my wishes for them. May I be of help, but may I also have the wisdom to accept the things I cannot change. This is not a cold detachment. It is a profound, respectful, and loving release of the ego's need to control the world. It is the deepest form of trust in the flow of life. With a heart trained in these four immeasurable qualities, we develop a profound inner resilience. We become a refuge for ourselves and for others. We are warm, yet steady. We are tender, yet strong. We are joyful, yet grounded. We are open to the entirety of the human experience, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. And we can meet it all with a balanced mind and a free heart. Having cultivated this extraordinary inner stability, this mountain-like heart, how do we now carry it into the world? How does this inner training change the way we navigate the friction of our daily interactions? Specifically, when confronted with the inevitable reality of conflict, criticism, or misunderstanding, how does a person with a balanced heart respond? Our journey now takes us from the inner temple of the heart to the marketplace of human relationships, to learn the practical art of navigating conflict with the story of the empty boat. We have spent our journey thus far cultivating a rich and beautiful inner landscape. We have built a foundation of mindfulness, an understanding of life's great laws, and a heart brimming with the four sublime states of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. We have, in essence, learned to build a still mountain within ourselves. But a mountain's strength is not tested on calm days. It is tested when the fierce winds blow, and in our daily lives, the sharpest and most unpredictable winds are often the words and actions of other people. It is a strange and humbling truth that a person can spend years cultivating inner peace, only to have it shattered in a single moment by an unkind comment, a piece of gossip, or an unfair criticism. Our equanimity can feel robust in the quiet of our meditation, but it feels fragile and vulnerable in the face of human conflict. This is because our sense of self, or ego, is deeply invested in how others see us. We crave their praise and we fear their blame. Our peace is conditional, held hostage by the opinions of the world. The path to unshakable peace requires us to learn how to navigate these winds, how to deal with conflict and criticism in a way that does not disturb our inner mountain. The key to this is found in the profound and simple wisdom of the empty boat. There is an ancient story told by the Taoist sage Zhuangzi that holds the essence of this teaching. Imagine a man is out on a misty river, rowing his small boat. He is enjoying the peace and solitude. Suddenly, through the mist, another boat comes crashing into his with a loud thud. Immediately, his peace is shattered. Anger flares within him. He shouts at the other boat, cursing the careless person who has just damaged his vessel and ruined his tranquil morning. He is filled with righteous indignation. He stands up to shout again, ready to unleash a torrent of abuse. But as he looks closer, he sees that there is no one in the other boat. It is an empty boat, one that has simply broken loose from its moorings and been carried downstream by the current. In that instant, all of his anger vanishes. There is no one to be angry at. There is no one to blame. There is only the impersonal reality of a collision. He is no longer a victim, just a man on a river with a new situation to handle. He calmly takes his pole, pushes the empty boat away, and continues on his journey, his peace largely restored. Zhuangzi asks us to contemplate this. The event was identical in both scenarios. The collision was the same. The damage to his boat was the same. The interruption was the same. The only thing that changed was the presence of a target for his anger. The anger was never truly about the collision itself. It was about the perceived malicious intention of another person. It was his ego, his sense of me, that felt assaulted. You did this to me. When he saw the boat was empty, the you disappeared. And so the reactive, defensive me had nothing to push against. The anger simply had no fuel to burn. The teaching is this: if you can learn to empty your own boat, if you can navigate the river of life without a proud, defensive, and easily wounded self sitting in the driver's seat, then who can possibly offend you? Who can you be angry with? When criticism, blame, or insults come floating down the river toward you, you see them for what they are: empty boats. Let us bring this into our lives. When someone speaks to us with anger or criticizes us unfairly, our immediate, habitual reaction is to see a malicious boatman deliberately ramming our boat. We take it personally. How dare they say that about me? We feel attacked, and our entire being mobilizes for defense or counterattack. We spend hours, or even days, ruminating on the injustice. But the wisdom of the empty boat invites a radical shift in perspective. It asks us to see that the other person's boat is, in a very real sense, empty of any true understanding of us. Their anger, their criticism, their harsh words are rarely about us at all. They are the result of their own suffering, their own misunderstanding, their own unmet needs and unhealed wounds. Their anger is their own boat that has broken loose from its moorings of wisdom and compassion, and it is now just drifting aimlessly down the river, crashing into whatever is in its path. It is not personal. It is the impersonal manifestation of their own pain. To see this is to be free. It is no longer an attack on me. It is simply the unfortunate event of their suffering bumping into my experience. The Buddha taught this same principle in a slightly different way. One day, a man came to him and began to insult him with a stream of vile and abusive language. The Buddha listened with patient, silent attention. He did not interrupt or defend himself. When the man had finally exhausted himself and fallen silent, the Buddha spoke calmly. He asked, "My friend, if you prepare a beautiful gift and you bring it to someone, but that person refuses to accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The man, surprised by the question, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, if they do not accept it, it would still belong to me." The Buddha smiled and nodded. "Exactly so," he said. "Today, you have come and offered me a gift of anger and abuse. I do not accept it." With that, the man was left speechless, holding his own unopened, empoisonne gift. This teaching is a profound empowerment. It reminds us that we have a choice. We do not have to accept the gifts of anger, hatred, or criticism that others try to hand us. We can politely, internally, refuse the delivery. Their anger remains their property, not ours. We are not a public dumping ground for the emotional waste of others. To put this into practice requires, above all, a pause. When the harsh words come, our ingrained habit is to react instantly. The practice is to insert a moment of mindfulness before that reaction. In that pause, we take a breath, we feel our feet on the ground, and we remember the empty boat. We see the words coming toward us, not as a personal attack, but as a reflection of the other person's suffering. In that spacious moment, we are no longer a victim. We are a conscious participant who can choose a skillful response. Perhaps the wisest response is the Buddha's, a calm, dignified silence. Perhaps it is to acknowledge their feeling without accepting the content. I can see that you are very upset. Perhaps, if our heart is truly open, we can even feel a flicker of compassion for the suffering that is causing them to act this way. We are no longer adding our own anger to the situation. We are not ramming our boat back into theirs. We are bringing a moment of sanity and peace to an otherwise painful encounter. This practice of emptying our boat, of refusing to accept the gift of abuse, is a profound and specific application of a much broader principle. It is the art of letting go. We are learning to let go of our attachment to being right, our attachment to our reputation, our attachment to being liked and approved of. And if we can learn to let go of something as precious to the ego as our own image, can we perhaps learn to let go of other things we cling to? This question leads us to the very heart of spiritual freedom, the universal, essential, and liberating art of letting go. Our journey has brought us to a place of profound inner cultivation. We have learned to sit with the mountain-like stability of equanimity, our hearts open and balanced, able to meet life's joys and sorrows with a wise and steady presence. We have seen how this inner balance can transform our outer world, allowing us to navigate the stormy waters of conflict by seeing the empty boat of another's suffering rather than feeling personally attacked. All of these practices, from watching the breath to opening the heart, to emptying our boat, are different facets of one single, essential, and liberating skill. It is the master key that unlocks every door on the spiritual path. It is the art of letting go. This art is the gentle, courageous, and continuous practice of unburdening the heart. It is the recognition that our suffering comes not from the events of our lives, but from our clinging to them, our desperate grasping, and our violent resistance. To learn to let go is to learn to be free. First, it is vital that we understand what letting go is not. It is not a form of spiritual bypassing, a denial of reality, or an excuse for inaction. Letting go is not indifference. It does not mean you stop caring about yourself or others. In fact, it is the highest form of care. You care enough to release yourself from the useless burden of resentment. You care enough to release others from the weight of your expectations. Letting go is not resignation or apathy. It does not mean you passively accept injustice or harm. It means you let go of your own inner turmoil, your rage, your hatred, your despair, so that you can respond to the situation with clarity, wisdom, and effective action, rather than blind reactivity. And for most of us, letting go is not about physical renunciation. You do not need to give away all your possessions to be free. It is about changing your inner relationship to the things, people, and ideas in your life. You can have things without them having you. You can love people without clinging to them. It is an inner release, not necessarily an outer rejection. So what is letting go? Imagine your mind is a hand. From the moment we are born, we are taught to clench this hand into a fist, to grasp and to hold on. We clench our fist around our desires, our ambitions, our possessions. We clench it around our memories, both good and bad. We clench it around our opinions, our beliefs, our identity. We even clench it around our pain, carrying our grievances for years as if they were precious treasures. This constant clenching is exhausting. It creates a state of perpetual tension at the core of our being. The art of letting go is the simple, radical act of uncurling the fingers. It is the gentle willingness to open the hand and allow the river of life, the river of anicca, to flow through it without obstruction. It is the discovery that there was never anything to hold on to in the first place. Another beautiful metaphor is that of a cup. Our minds are often like a cup that is already full to the brim. It is filled with old regrets, future anxieties, rigid opinions, and unhealed wounds because it is already full. There is no room for anything new to enter. There is no space for peace, no space for joy, no space for fresh insight. Letting go is the act of tipping the cup and pouring out its stale contents, creating the empty space necessary for the present moment to pour in. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures the essence of this practice. Two monks, an older one named Tanzan and a younger one named Ekido, were traveling together on a pilgrimage. Their journey took them to a river that had flooded, turning the path into a muddy morass. There, waiting to cross, was a beautiful young woman dressed in a fine silk kimono, who was afraid to step into the mud. Without hesitation, the older monk, Tanzan, approached her, gracefully lifted her into his arms, carried her across the muddy water, and gently set her down on the dry ground on the other side. He then bowed and continued his journey. The younger monk, Ekido, was aghast. He was utterly scandalized. Monastic vows strictly forbid them from touching a woman, let alone a young and beautiful one. He was filled with judgmental thoughts and righteous anger. For the next several hours, he walked behind his master in fuming silence. He replayed the scene over and over in his mind, fueling his resentment. How could his master be so undisciplined? What a terrible example. Finally, as evening approached, Ekido could bear the weight of his anger no longer. He burst out, "Master, I have a question. We monks are supposed to keep our distance from women. It is a serious rule. Why did you carry that woman across the river?" Tanzan looked back at his young companion, a look of genuine surprise on his face. He replied, "Oh, you mean that lady? I set her down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story reveals a profound truth about our own minds. We are all Aikido. The events of our lives happen, and then they are over, but we continue to carry them in our minds for hours, days, weeks, or even a lifetime. We carry the weight of past arguments, past failures, past hurts. We carry the heavy burden of our resentment toward those who have wronged us. We are carrying a whole collection of ghosts from the past. The art of letting go is the art of leaving the woman by the river, It is the recognition that the event is over, and the only place it continues to exist is in our own clinging mind. This is a practice we can apply in every area of our lives. We can learn to let go of the past. When a memory of a past regret or a past grievance arises, we can acknowledge it, perhaps with a gentle mental note of remembering or the past. And then, like Tenzin, we can choose to leave it where it belongs, in the past, and bring our attention back to the reality of the present moment. We can learn to let go of the future. Our minds are constantly creating elaborate plans and anxious worries about what is to come. This is a heavy burden of expectation. We can practice by recognizing these future-oriented thoughts as just that, thoughts, and gently unclenching our fist around our desire to control what is, by its very nature, uncontrollable. And perhaps, most subtly, we can learn to let go of our rigid opinions and our need to be right. We cling to our views as if they are our very identity. Letting go here means cultivating a humble openness, an understanding that our perspective is not the only one. Letting go is the essential motion of a wise heart. It is a continuous practice of unburdening, of unclenching, of emptying the cup in each and every moment. It is the deepest expression of our trust in the flow of life. But as we become more adept at this practice, a very subtle and important question arises. If we are to let go of all our attachments, what about our attachment to this path? What about our clinging to these teachings, to the beautiful ideas of Buddhism, to the very goal of enlightenment itself? Can these too become a burden we are carrying? Another woman we have forgotten to leave by the river. This question leads us to a crucial piece of wisdom, a teaching that ensures the path itself does not become another prison. It is the wisdom of knowing that the raft that carries you across the river is not the same as the shore you are trying to reach. We have journeyed to the very heart of freedom, to the essential practice of letting go. We have explored what it means to release our grip on the past and the future, to empty our boat of the heavy burden of the ego, and to meet conflict with a spacious heart. This art of release is the central current that carries us toward liberation. It feels as though we have discovered the ultimate principle, but the wisdom of the path is subtle and profound, and it now presents us with the most paradoxical test of all. Having learned to let go of our pain, our attachments, and our self-image, we must now learn to let go of the path itself. If we are not careful, the very teachings that promise freedom can become our new, most refined, and most beautiful prison. A new ego can be born, a spiritual ego, that prides itself on its understanding of doctrine, its diligence in meditation, or its identity as a spiritual person. The path to freedom can become just another thing to cling to, another possession, to protect us from this subtle trap. The Buddha offered one of his most famous and practical parables, the parable of the raft. He asks us to imagine a person standing on the bank of a vast and treacherous body of water. This near shore, he says, is the world of our ordinary existence, a place fraught with danger, to fear, anxiety, and suffering. The far shore is a place of safety, security, and ultimate peace. It is nirvana, the end of suffering. There is no bridge to cross this water, and no ferry to carry people over. The person, being wise and resourceful, thinks to themselves, this body of water is vast, and the near shore is dangerous, but the far shore is safe. Let me gather together grass, twigs, branches, and leaves, and bind them together to make a raft. And so, they go to work. With diligence and effort, they construct a simple but effective raft. Then, relying on the raft and paddling earnestly with their hands and feet, they make the difficult journey and arrive, safely and with great relief, on the far shore. They have reached their destination. The struggle is over. Now, the Buddha turns to his monks and asks the crucial question, "What do you think, monks, that person should do with the raft, having arrived on the safe shore? Should they think, 'This raft has been so very helpful to me. I could not have made it here without it. I owe it a great debt of gratitude. And out of this gratitude, should they then hoist the raft up onto their head and shoulders and carry it with them as they continue their journey on dry land?' The monks replied, 'No, Lord, to carry the raft on land would be a heavy and foolish burden.' The Buddha agreed. 'And what,' he continued, 'would be the wise thing for that person to do?' The wise person would reflect, 'This raft has served its purpose. It has brought me to safety. I have no further use for it now.' They would then push the raft back into the water for someone else to use, or simply leave it on the riverbank and continue their journey onward, unburdened and free. The Buddha concluded, 'In the same way, monks, I have taught the Dhamma, the teachings, as being like a raft, for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of holding on to.' This simple story is a profound teaching on spiritual maturity. It asks us to look deeply at our own relationship with the path. What is our raft? The raft is everything we use to make the journey. It is the teachings themselves, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the concepts of anicca, anatta, and karma. These are brilliant, essential maps. But a map is not the territory. We can become so attached to the intellectual understanding of these concepts that we spend all our time studying the map, debating its finer points, and comparing it to other maps, without ever actually taking the journey. We become spiritual scholars, not liberated beings. The teachings are like a finger pointing to the moon. The purpose of the finger is to direct our gaze, but if we become fascinated with the finger analyzing its shape, its wrinkles, its length, we will never see the luminous beauty of the moon itself. The teachings are the finger. Direct experience is the moon. The raft is also our techniques and practices, the practice of mindfulness of breath, the cultivation of the four sublime states, the rituals, the chants, the traditions. These are the tools we use to build the raft and paddle across the water. They are essential and incredibly skillful means, but we can become attached to them. We can develop a new form of pride based on our practice. I am a good meditator. I can sit for an hour without moving. My particular tradition has the best and most effective techniques. We can become so rigid in our adherence to a particular form that we forget its sole purpose, to ferry us across the river of our own suffering. The technique is not the goal. The goal is the freedom that the technique makes possible. If a practice is not leading to a tangible decrease in our own greed, hatred, and delusion, and a tangible increase in our wisdom and compassion, then we are just sitting on the raft, going nowhere. And perhaps most subtly, the raft is the very identity of being a Buddhist or a spiritual person. We can let go of our old egoic identities, the successful professional, the rebellious artist, the dutiful parent only, to adopt a new one, This new spiritual ego can be even more insidious because it is cloaked in virtue. We begin to judge others who are not on the path. We feel a subtle sense of superiority. We have simply swapped one set of chains for another, albeit a more beautiful and gilded set. We have decorated our prison cell instead of walking out the door. We are now carrying a very holy and very heavy raft on our back, and wondering why we do not feel free. The wise practitioner uses the raft with immense gratitude and respect. They understand its value. They do not treat the teachings with contempt, but they hold them lightly. They understand that the teachings are purely functional. They are a prescription for an illness. Once the illness is cured, you do not need to keep taking the medicine. You use the maps to find your way. But when you arrive, you put the map down and look at the landscape. You use the tools to build your house. But when the house is built, you do not carry the hammer and saw with you into the living room. The goal is not to become a perfect Buddhist. The goal is not to be able to recite all the scriptures by heart. The goal is to become free. And freedom means letting go of everything that binds you, including, in the final analysis, the very tools that set you free. So let us return to the man in the parable. He has made the journey. He has wisely left the raft on the shore. He is standing now on solid ground, unburdened, light, and free. What is this far shore? Where has he arrived? He has not been transported to a magical heaven or a different dimension. He has simply stopped struggling. He has stopped trying to get somewhere else. He has arrived fully and completely in the only place that life ever truly exists. He has arrived in the here and now. Our journey now takes us to this far shore, to explore the profound and simple reality of living in the present moment. We have journeyed far. We have navigated the turbulent waters of our own mind and heart. And with the raft of the teachings, we have made the crossing. Now, following the advice of the Buddha, we have let the raft go. We are not clinging to doctrines. We are not attached to techniques. We are not wearing our spirituality as a new identity. We have released the burden, and so we find ourselves standing on the far shore, the shore of safety and peace. But where is this shore? What does it look like? We look around, and we find there is no magical kingdom, no golden light, no choir of angels. The shore we have arrived upon is the very ground we have been standing on all along. The great secret, the treasure we have been seeking, was never lost. The peace we have been striving for was not in some distant future. The entire journey was a journey back to the one and only place where life is ever happening. Right here, right now. This is the great arrival. It is the discovery of the profound, luminous, and healing power of the present moment. For most of our lives, we are not truly alive. We are sleepwalking. We inhabit a ghost world constructed by our own minds, a world of the past and the future. We live in the past, a realm of memory. We spend our days rereading the scripts of yesterday. We endlessly replay conversations, editing our lines to be wittier or more cutting. We bask in the faded glory of old successes, or we are haunted by the ghosts of our past mistakes, turning them over and over, steeping ourselves in the bitter tea of regret. We nurse old grievances, keeping the wounds fresh by constantly picking at the scabs. The past becomes a heavy anchor that we drag through every new day, preventing us from ever feeling the freshness of what is right in front of us. When we are not living in the past, We are projecting ourselves into the future, a realm of pure fantasy. We spend our energy rehearsing for a life that has not yet happened. We are lost in elaborate plans, detailed strategies, and anxious worries. We live our lives for a hypothetical then, when things will finally be perfect. I will be happy when I get this promotion. I can finally relax when I go on vacation. My life will begin when the children are grown. The future becomes a perpetually receding horizon of promised happiness, a destination we are always striving for, but never seem to reach. And so, we exist in this strange limbo, too late for the past and too early for the future, constantly missing the only thing that is ever real, this present moment. We are ghosts in the machine of our own lives. The practice of arriving in the here and now is the act of waking up from this dream of thought. It is the simple, radical act of bringing your full, undivided attention to the raw, unfiltered reality of your present experience. It is not a complicated concept. It is a direct, visceral landing. Try it right now. For a moment, let go of the story of your life, the narrative of who you are and where you are going, and simply arrive. What do you see? Not the names of the objects, but the actual play of light, shape, and color entering your eyes. What do you hear? Listen beneath the obvious sounds. Can you hear the subtle hum of electricity, the distant sound of traffic, the sound of your own breathing? What do you feel? Feel the solid reality of the chair or the floor supporting you. Feel the sensation of the air on your skin, its temperature, its movement. Feel the aliveness in your own hands and feet. This is it. This is reality. It is not found in a book or a philosophy. It is here, in the vivid, pulsing, undeniable truth of your direct, sensory experience. To land in your senses is to come home. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illuminates this state of being. A young, eager student approaches his Zen master and asks him, "Master, what was your life like before you became enlightened?" The old master smiles and replies, "Before I was enlightened, I chopped wood and I carried water." The student thinks about this for a moment, then asks, "And what is your life like now?" "After you have become enlightened," the master replies without hesitation, "Now that I am enlightened, I chop wood and I carry water." The student is completely baffled. "Then what is the difference?" he asks. "What was all the effort for?" The master's smile widens. He says, "The difference is this. Before I was enlightened, when I was chopping wood, I was thinking about carrying water, and when I was carrying water, my mind was already on to thinking about preparing the evening meal. Now, when I chop wood, I just chop wood. When I carry water, I just carry water. In each moment, there is only that." This is the secret. Enlightenment, liberation, peace. It is not an escape from the ordinary circumstances of your life. It is the ability to be fully, completely, and without reservation present for them. The miracle is not to be found in changing what you do, but in transforming the quality of attention you bring to what you do. This is why any activity in daily life can become a profound meditation. When you wash the dishes, you can be lost in a daydream of resentment or planning. Or you can wash the dishes. You can feel the warmth of the water on your hands. You can feel the smooth, soapy texture of the plate. You can hear the sound of the water. In that moment of full attention, Washing dishes is the most important thing in the universe. When you drink a cup of tea, you can do it automatically while scrolling through your phone. Or you can drink tea. You can feel the warmth of the cup, see the steam rising, smell the fragrance, and truly taste the liquid as it passes your lips. This is the practice of finding the sacred in the ordinary. It is the art of arriving, moment after moment. This is the far shore. It is not a place of fireworks and grand revelations. It is a place of profound simplicity. It is the end of the search, the end of the struggle to become something else, to get somewhere else. It is the realization that the peace you are seeking in the future is available only in the quality of presence you bring to right now. It is the understanding that you are already, and have always been, standing on holy ground. But this raises a crucial question. It is one thing to feel present and peaceful while quietly drinking a cup of tea or watching a sunset. It is another thing entirely to maintain this presence in the midst of a demanding job, a chaotic family life, a noisy city, and a world full of trouble. Can this peace truly coexist with the messy, complicated, and often painful reality of our lives? Or is it a fragile state, only available in quiet moments? This is the final integration. It is the challenge of finding our peace, not by escaping the world, but by discovering it at the very heart of the world. It is the path of finding nirvana in the midst of samsara. We have followed the path to its destination. We have crossed the great water on the raft of the teachings, and with wisdom, we have left the raft behind on the shore. We have arrived, and the shore we have arrived upon is the simple, direct, and vivid reality of the present moment. We have learned to chop wood when we are chopping wood, and to carry water when we are carrying water. This is a profound peace, a homecoming, but a question lingers. A practical and honest question that echoes in the heart of every practitioner who must live in the real world. What happens when the wood is difficult to chop? What happens when the water buckets are heavy and the path is long? It is one thing to feel peaceful while watching a sunset or sipping a cup of tea. It is another thing entirely to maintain that peace in the midst of a demanding job, a family crisis, a personal failure, or a world filled with injustice and noise. Do we have to retreat from the world to protect this fragile peace for centuries? Many have believed that this is the only way. This belief creates the great final duality in the spiritual life, the separation between samsara and nirvana. In this view, samsara is the world we know. It is the relentless cycle of birth and death, the spinning wheel of craving and suffering. It is the world of traffic jams, difficult bosses, political conflict, sickness, and loss. It is seen as a prison, a place of bondage, a realm of fire and dust that we must escape from. Nirvana, in this dualistic view, is the opposite. It is a separate realm of perfect peace, a transcendent state completely removed from the messiness of ordinary life. It is imagined as a quiet garden, a peaceful heaven, a state of permanent bliss, free from all worldly troubles. The spiritual path, from this perspective, is a long and arduous journey of escape, a desperate attempt to climb out of the prison of samsara and into the sanctuary of nirvana. Our peace is forever conditional upon getting away from the world as it is. This view, while understandable, is the final and most subtle trap of the seeking mind. It keeps us in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, forever fighting against reality, forever trying to be somewhere else. The most profound insight of the mature spiritual path is the dissolution of this duality. It is the great turning of the mind where we realize that samsara and nirvana are not two different places. They are two different ways of seeing the same place. The world does not need to change for us to be free. Our perception of the world is what must be transformed. Imagine looking at the ocean, an untrained mind, a mind clouded by the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion, sees only the waves. It sees the chaotic, clashing, unpredictable surface. It identifies with one wave, fears another, desires a third. It is tossed about, anxious and insecure. This experience of the ocean is samsara. Now imagine an awakened mind. It looks at the very same ocean, but it does not see only the waves. It sees, it feels, and knows the vast, deep, unified body of water from which the waves arise. It understands that the waves are not separate from the water. The waves are simply the water in a temporary state of motion. The awakened mind realizes its own nature not as a fragile, individual wave, but as the entire ocean itself. This is nirvana. The ocean did not change. The waves did not stop. The only thing that changed was the perception, the point of identification. To find peace is not to flatten the ocean, but to realize that you are the ocean. Samsara, the endless dance of the waves, happens within nirvana, the boundless reality of the water. The most beautiful metaphor for this profound truth is the lotus flower. The lotus is a universal symbol of purity, beauty, and spiritual awakening. Its petals are immaculate. Its form is perfect. Its fragrance is divine. But where does this symbol of absolute purity grow? The lotus does not grow in a sterile, heavenly garden. The lotus grows only in the mud. It sinks its roots deep into the dark, murky, smelly, and messy pond bottom. This mud, this unattractive sludge, is the very substance that nourishes the lotus. The lotus draws its life from the mud and, through a miraculous process of transformation, turns the raw, messy stuff of the earth into sublime and transcendent beauty. The lotus does not reject the mud. It does not try to escape the mud. It embraces the mud, and in doing so, it blossoms in our lives. The mud is samsara. It is the messy, difficult, painful, and confusing stuff of our everyday existence. It is our difficult job, our challenging relationships, our financial worries, our physical illnesses, our grief, our anger, our fear. For most of our lives, we hate the mud. We try to avoid it, to clean it off, to pretend it doesn't exist. We dream of a life without mud, a life of pure lotus flowers. But this is a fantasy. The great teaching of nirvana in samsara is that the mud is not an obstacle to our awakening. It is the very soil required for it. Our challenges are not impediments to the path. They are the path. The difficult person at work is not preventing you from being peaceful. They are your teacher of patience, your opportunity to practice the empty boat. The grief you feel from a loss is not a sign of failure. It is the mud of love and connection from which the lotus of compassion can grow. Your own anxiety is not an enemy to be vanquished. It is a teacher of impermanence. showing you where you are still clinging. When we truly understand this, the entire world transforms. There is no longer a separation between our spiritual life and our ordinary life. Every moment becomes an opportunity for practice. The roar of city traffic is no longer a disturbance. It is the sound of anicca, the sound of the universe happening. Washing the dishes is no longer a chore. It is a meditation on presence. A moment of intense frustration is no longer a setback. It is a bright, clear signal showing us exactly where our attachments lie. The world, which once seemed like a prison, is revealed to be a sacred monastery. And every person and every event is a teacher in disguise. Peace is not found by creating a perfect, silent, mud-free life. Peace is found by bringing a loving, a spacious, and wakeful presence to the life we actually have. It is the discovery of the lotus in our own muddy heart. So we have arrived at this profound understanding, this ultimate integration. We have seen that peace is not out there, but in here. It is not in a different place, but in a different way of seeing. But after this long journey of transformation, a final question remains. What have we become after all this practice, all this learning, all this letting go? Who is the one who remains? Have we become a saint, a sage, a spiritual giant? The final, gentle surprise of the path is that it is not a journey of becoming someone new at all. It is a journey of unbecoming, a return to what we have always been. It is a journey back to our own profound and powerful simplicity. It is the discovery of the uncarved block. We have followed the path to its most profound and subtle realization. We have seen that the peace we seek is not in a distant place, but in a different way of seeing. We have discovered the lotus of awakening blooming in the very mud of our ordinary lives. The great division between the sacred and the secular has dissolved. The journey, in a sense, is complete. We have arrived, and so, the final question of the ego arises: what have I become? Who am I now? We secretly imagine that after all this work, after all this practice, we will have attained something extraordinary. We imagine an enlightened being as a kind of spiritual superhero, radiating light, possessing secret knowledge, and floating serenely above the concerns of ordinary mortals. We imagine that the goal of the path was to add a final, gleaming, perfected layer to our personality. But the ultimate paradox, the final, gentle joke of the spiritual path, is that its entire purpose is not to add anything to you at all. The entire journey has been a process of subtraction, of unlearning, of letting go. The goal was never to become someone new. It was always about returning to the simple, luminous, and profound reality of what you already were, before the world started telling you who you should be. Most human endeavors are based on the principle of addition. We strive to accumulate wealth, accumulate knowledge, accumulate experiences, accumulate relationships. We build a complex and impressive identity, a resume of our life that we present to the world. And when we first turn to a spiritual path, we often bring this same consumer mindset with us. We want to accumulate spiritual experiences, memorize profound philosophies, master advanced techniques, and ultimately acquire the state of enlightenment as the final and most impressive possession for our collection. But this path works in the opposite direction. It is a path of stripping away, of simplifying, of undoing. We are not building a more elaborate identity. We are dismantling the false one, layer by layer. We let go of our attachment to the past. We let go of our anxiety about the future. We let go of our need for the approval of others. We let go of our rigid opinions. We even, in the end, let go of the raft of the teachings themselves. We are not building a more ornate and beautiful statue. We are gently washing away all the layers of dust and grime to reveal the pristine, unadorned beauty that was there from the very beginning. In the ancient wisdom of Taoism, there is a concept called pu, which translates as the uncarved block. Imagine a simple, solid block of wood, fresh from the forest. It is whole, it is natural, it is unadorned. In its simplicity, it holds infinite potential. It could become a table, tout cher, a bowl, a sculpture. This is pu, the state of pure, unconditioned potential. Now, imagine a master carver begins to work on the block. With immense skill, he carves it into an intricate, magnifique dragon. With every scale, tooth, and whisker perfectly rendered, the dragon is breathtaking, a masterpiece of complexity and artistry. But it has lost something. It has lost its infinite potential. It can now only ever be a dragon. It has become specialized, defined, and limited. Our lives are this process. We are born with the simple, boundless potential of the uncarved block. But then our conditioning begins. Our family, our culture, our education, our experiences, they are all carvers. They shape us, define us, and turn us into a specific, limited identity. I am a man. I am a woman. I am smart. I am anxious. I am a success. I am a failure. We become this intricately carved, but ultimately limited dragon. The spiritual journey, then, is not about adding more elaborate golden scales to our dragon persona. It is the process of realizing our true nature as the simple, whole, and powerful wood that lies beneath all the carving. It is a return to our own profound simplicity. Zen Buddhism points to this same reality with a famous koan, a question designed to shatter the logical mind. Students are asked to meditate on the question, what was your original face? The face you had before your parents were born. This question is a direct invitation to look beyond everything you think you are. Who are you without your name, without your body, without your personal history, without your memories, your beliefs, your personality? What is left when every single label, every single piece of the intricate carving has been removed? When the mind stops its frantic search for an answer, when it gives up trying to grasp a concept, a stillness arises. And in that stillness, we can glimpse what is always present, a simple, open, luminous awareness. This is our original face. It has never been damaged. It has never been lost. It has only been obscured by the masks we have been taught to wear. The entire path has been a process of gently washing our own face, removing the layers of mud we have accumulated. This return to simplicity changes our entire relationship to knowledge. The carved, egoic mind wants to know. It wants to be an expert, to have all the answers, to feel secure in its intellectual grasp of reality. But the wise mind of the uncarved block is comfortable in what is called a state of not knowing. This is not ignorance. It is a radical openness. It is the wisdom of the beginner's mind, which is empty and ready for anything, as opposed to the expert's mind, which is full and closed to new possibilities. It is the release of the need to have a fixed opinion about everything, and the embrace of a curious, receptive, and humble presence. And so, we discover that the journey does not end with a thunderclap of cosmic attainment or the development of supernatural powers. It ends in the quiet miracle of being simply and fully human. It is a return to chopping wood and carrying water, but with a heart that has been emptied of its burdens. The world is the same, but our way of being in it is completely transformed. We act not from a place of anxiety and lack, but from a place of fullness and peace. We love not to get something, but because it is our nature to love. We live not in the pursuit of a future happiness, but from a wellspring of present peace. Our long and winding journey, from the first recognition of suffering to the deepest insights into the nature of reality, has led us back home, to the profound and unshakable peace of our own ordinary, simple, and uncarved being. And so, our long journey together comes to a close. We began with the quiet, unspoken ache of a life lived in a state of restless motion, the feeling of being a stranger in our own lives. We dared to look this dissatisfaction in the face, giving it a name, Dukkha, and in doing so, we took the first courageous step onto an ancient path. We followed the trail of our own suffering back to its source, discovering the insatiable, thirsty mind, the clinging of tanha that fuels the fires of our discontent. But in that darkness, we also saw a great light, the promise of Nirodha, the truth that the fire can go out and that a shore of profound peace is not a distant dream, but an attainable reality. We were given a map to that shore, the Noble Eightfold Path, and we walked it together. We learned to anchor our wild minds with the simple, faithful rhythm of the breath. We watched the unstable river of reality, seeing the truth of impermanence in every passing moment. We investigated the ghost in the machine, and in finding it empty, we were liberated from the heavy burden of the ego. We learned that we are the farmers of our own becoming, planting the seeds of our future with every intention. We opened our hearts, cultivating boundless love, tender compassion, celebratory joy, and the unshakable, mountain-like peace of equanimity. We learned to navigate the world with the skill of the empty boat, and to unburden ourselves through the sacred art of letting go. We saw the wisdom in leaving the raft behind, and we finally arrived, not in some faraway heaven, but in the luminous, vibrant reality of the here and now. We found the lotus of awakening growing in the very mud of our ordinary lives, and we returned, not as a perfected saint, but to the profound, unadorned simplicity of our own true nature. If there is one single truth to carry forth from our journey, let it be this: peace is not a destination. It is not a prize to be won at the end of a long struggle. It is not something you will find by finally arranging all the external circumstances of your life into a perfect, harmonious picture. Peace is a quality of mind. It is a capacity you can cultivate within yourself. Right now, in the midst of your imperfect life, it is the spaciousness of the sky that can hold both the storm clouds and the sunshine. It is the stillness of the deep ocean that is untroubled by the chaotic waves on the surface. You do not need to escape the world to find it. You only need to learn to meet the world with a transformed heart. The goal is not to eliminate the mud, but to learn how to grow the lotus within it. This journey we have taken is not an end. It is a beginning. The map has been unfolded. The tools have been offered, but the journey itself must be walked by you. No one can breathe for you. No one can be aware for you. No one can let go for you. The power and the beautiful responsibility for your own liberation rest now in your own hands. Do not be discouraged if the mind is still wild at times, or if the heart sometimes feels closed. The path is not a straight line. It is a spiral. We return to the same lessons again and again, each time with a little more wisdom, a little more kindness. Everything you need, you already have. The entire journey, with all its depth and beauty, begins and ends in the same simple place. It begins with your very next breath.